Good afternoon to all the participants. We are on the sixth day of this AICT ATAL sponsored 1 week online faculty development program on risk to resilience, innovative resilience strategies for mitigating climate change. And I'm really thankful, glad, and honored that we have with us Dr. Subramaniam A Karuppannan. Sir is presently at Malaysia and he really thought of contributing to this particular FDP. And I'm really thankful, sir, that you have added a lot of value to our program. So, Dr. Subramaniam Karuppannan is highly accomplished environmental health and safety expert with over 35 years of experience spanning government service, academia, industry, and consultancy. He has held notable academic positions, including serving as head of the Environmental Health and Safety Department at UITM and Mahasa University in Malaysia. His extensive career includes 20 years in the industrial sector and 15 years in training and consultancy, demonstrating his versatile expertise and leadership in the EHS field. Between 2006 and 16, Dr. Subramaniam successfully led numerous research projects, securing 4 FRGS grants during his tenure at UITM. He served as an EHS consultant for 11 private sector funded studies, which included environmental impact assessments, occupational safety and health, and industrial hygiene assessments. His impactful work extended to knowledge transfer initiatives and ecological studies, such as coordinating expeditions to Royal Belem Perak and Endau Rompin Pahang from 2011 to 2012, as well as tree planting projects at the Raja Musa Forest Reserve in the collaboration with GEC and the Trees for Life programs. A prolific researcher and academician, Dr. Subramaniam has authored numerous publications, achieving 887 citations, H index of 14, and I-10 index of 20 at the Google Scholar. His research interests include noise and physio-psycho impacts of motorcycle accidents, eye irritation prevalence among welders, leptospirosis studies in urban and rural areas, and PFCs in waste disposal sites. He has presented his research at various national and international conferences in Australia, Japan, Singapore, Indonesia, India, Pakistan, Thailand, and so on, contributing significantly to the global EHS discourse. Dr. Subramaniam is a member of elite organizations in Malaysia and internationally and currently teaches graduate postgraduate programs at institutions such as UITM, UPM, and OUM. He is also a recognized trainer for HRDF, NIOSH, UITM Tech, MAEH, MIHA, InSearch, and MSWME. His have earned him prestigious awards, including Excellent Service Medal Sultan Selangor PJK in 1991, Excellent Service Award 6 times MOH and UITM, Outstanding Lecturer in UITM in 2015, Best Managed Department in UITM 2015, Certificate of Appreciation from the Prime Minister's Award, Highland Towers Tragedy in 1993, Best Poster Presentation in ICOSH 2019, MSU Shah Alam. Currently, Dr. Subramaniam continues to make a significant impact in environmental health as an environmental health expert and a key member of the thematic working group 10 of NEHAP. I welcome you, sir, on behalf of the Civil Engineering Department at IPS Academy, Indore. I'm honored to have you with us and I request you to please share your expertise and insights with us.
That's great. Okay, is my screen viewable?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah, thank you. Can I begin? Or should we wait?
So we may start, sir.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Welcome to everybody for this session. This is going to be a quite lengthy session. I think I'm given about, am I correct, 1.5 hours? Okay. So the title given to me is Environmental Impact Assessment and Sustainable Environmental Management. It's a combined topic, so I'll be covering it 2 parts. Basically, the topic will have a component of environmental impacts, and then we want to look at whether there are going to be any sustainable management efforts that we can do to manage the environment in a better way, right? I think most of you would have seen the current issues that are going on in the world. as well as in India, particularly in New Delhi, right? We have been reading a lot about the air pollution issues in New Delhi. It was quite interesting. Well, I'm sharing this article of mine together with Dr. Muthukumaran. Muthukumaran is a PhD in engineering from University of Malaya. He also joined me in preparing this paper. Okay, let me go to the main topic. So before we go, I'll just browse through the table of contents. I'll be covering in the introduction, a review on the environmental health impact, sustainable environment management, both in Malaysia and internationally. And then I'll be looking at methodology in assessing environment and health, and then utilizing sustainable management methods. There's some discussion on this subject, as well as the 3 case studies that I would like to introduce to you all. 2 of the case studies I've been involved personally, and one is something that I referred to. And then with some conclusion and some references at the end. Now, for the presentation, I think you all are very familiar with the rules of engagement. Generally, we will be practicing safety at all times. So probably towards the midway, I'll take a short 5 minutes break so that we can have a small break before we can continue. I suppose that should be okay. And then keep yourself muted at all times. And we can always chat. I don't know whether you have a chat function here. So if there are any questions or any query, please put it in the chat function, and then I will try to answer them as we go on. And lastly, please enjoy yourself while we are going through the presentation. Right? Okay. So as an introduction, generally the environmental damage is something that we cause harm to the environment in many ways, right? In fact, when I was going through the list, it is so long, so very lengthy. So I managed to only cover pollution, air, water, soil, and light. Besides that, fossil fuel consumption for greenhouse gas emissions, habitat destruction, where we have deforestation happening. Then we have desertification for industrialization. And then we have mining, agriculture. Then we have residential, industrial waste is coming from waste generation management. The industrialization, together with mining, agriculture, has got a major impact in generally in any environment. And then we have the issue of gene modification, which was introduced in modern agriculture, as well as in livestock farming. And then we have tourism and migration issues. Then we have overpopulation issues in the world. In fact, in the urban areas, it's really tremendous, this impact. And then we are dealing with consumerism and resource depletion. And we're also dealing with depletion of natural resources, which also led to reduced biodiversity, right? In fact, I'm very lucky to be in Malaysia. Malaysia is a very rich biodiversity country. Unfortunately, our natural resources are also being depleted very rapidly. So we are trying to conserve this biodiversity in our natural reserves. And then we have the disturbance of ecosystems. And then together with that, we have local as well as global effect. Currently, we are dealing with international agreements where we need to consider that, in fact, for our exports. Right? This has become an issue both in carbon taxation that we will touch on later in the SDG, ESG goals. Then together with that, the environmental damage can have negative impacts on the economy, such as increased, impact, as well as reduced energy availability, and also on depletion of energy resources. These are some of the issues that we picked out. And together with that, I'm selecting a few just to highlight here. Right. So generally, these are the 3 major areas that we are always dealing with. Right. Air, land, and water pollution. I suppose this will be something of concern to most of us. Right. These issues are not only old but also new. The old issues are being underground water depletion and the surface water depletion, and then we're leading into resource depletions from other areas like agriculture, and then leading to industrialization, and then from industrialization, it has gone into the air pollution issues. Air pollution issues have become a major problem, especially in urban areas. Right, it's not just happening only in certain locations, but it's happening all over the world. Right, in my country also we have this problem. There was an incident where air pollution went into the industrial area, into the surrounding population, and it affected school children and also the teachers in one location. And we had to shut down about 60 old schools. About 1,000 people were admitted. So these kind of issues are always coming up, right? So it is good for us to understand these issues so that we can tackle them at the source, right? And then the other types of pollution also that we may have to consider, for example, plastic pollution, right, from plastic waste. Currently, we are facing problem of microplastics in not just water, but also in food, as well as in the air. They have discovered microplastics, including in the human body, right? Then we have noise issues, which comes from environmental noise going into occupational settings, and as well as light emissions, which are unwanted excessive light in especially urban areas. And then we also dealing with thermal problems like heat and heat stress issues. These are among the issues that I picked up. Along with that, just for discussion, we have a long issue of carbon dioxide emission. Carbon dioxide is one of the major GHG gas, and it has been found to be around for many years, right? But the problem with us is that we are not able to handle it in the probably last 2 centuries. So leading from 1700s to current situation, we are having a lot of emissions rising unexpectedly over the last 20 to 30 years, right? This is giving a lot of impact to the environment, not just locally, but also globally, right? Now, among these pollution sources that we were touching on, we too have to look at the past and future carbon dioxide emissions. So this may be the reason why this topic is also very important for future, right? Currently, the environmental impact from carbon dioxide is already very high, especially on heat. And this will lead to a lot of problem on population growth, global and regional economic activities, as well as technological advancements. All this will have an impact on human health. So the environmental impact will come historically as well as currently. Currently, there are 5 scenarios that they have been given, especially based on the socioeconomic pathways, right? So if we control the emissions level now, then we may be able to manage it better, right? So the graphs are just models of potential growth that can happen if we control the carbon dioxide emissions. Some of these pollution sources from top CO2 emitting countries. I pick on CO2 because CO2 is one of the major GHG gas. So basically, they come from fossil fuels and cement. And when we go by countries, definitely United States, China, Russia, they lead the pack, including Germany as well as UK. The other countries like Japan, India, and all that go towards the end. So the major we call a problem comes from the top developed countries, right? The top 5 in the economic circle. And then we also got to consider the fact that when we emit carbon dioxide emissions, they are retained in the environment. They are not taken out from the environment as they are being released. So this is the cause of the carbon emission accumulation in the environment. The other issue that I'd like to bring out is something to do with livestock. I think everybody, we drink milk and we got milk-based products, right? Agriculture products, right? I was thinking of showing this dairy GHG emission by segments, right? If you look at the segmentation, 25% of the global dairy GHG emissions are from dairy farms in developed countries, another 75% emerging from dairies in emerging countries. So this is a very, very serious issue. It has been discussed by this IFCN, and they are also considering how to make it more carbon friendly, right? So this is another area for environmental impact. Then when we look at that is for pollution sources. Now I'm going into the reviewing of the environmental impacts and as well as sustainable environment management. Currently, what we do in Malaysia, we have one ministry, they call it Nature Resources, Environment, and Sustainability. So this ministry is looking after the environmental impact assessment, as well as any related health impacts coming from that in these projects. So generally, the projects are divided into major and minor. All right, so the major and minor will be both evaluated accordingly. But the health impact is based on project, right? I will show the checklist later, and then we can see how it goes forward from there. Okay, generally for EIA, we go back to the basis of the principles in environment assessment. We have to identify, predict, evaluate, and also communicate the information about the impact on the environment of a particular proposed project, and to detail out mitigating measures prior to approval or implementation. Now, this is ideal. Ideally, that means you do something that is it's like a preventive action, right? But currently, what we are facing is we are having local projects, major project, mega projects, which are spanning the whole country. One example is our national highway project, which is spanning from the north to the south of the country. We have the new high-speed rail, which is coming from China, coming through Laos, Cambodia, to Thailand, to Malaysia, and to Singapore. So you can imagine the amount of impact these kind of projects will come. But the projects are already ongoing, right? But we have to identify, predict, as well as evaluate the impact, right? But the communication part is something that is lacking. This needs to be adjusted accordingly. Another issue is not just major projects, but also smaller projects. Those small projects are the ones that are contributing to the environmental load. So generally, the environmental load is being made worse by the smaller projects, right? So this will be the one that is going to cause long-term impacts. And when we talk about environment impact assessment or EIA, right, we have to look at some of the inputs for the EIA, right? So we have stakeholder empowerment, we have institutional changes, then we have to consider corporate changes, we have to consider design engineering changes, and we also have to look at scientific changes. Now, when I was working in the Department of Environment, there was one section where we have to look at national development inputs. I was working on that section. And any new technologies that come into the country, we have to evaluate it. Right. So we have to look at the environmental, aspect when we're looking at technologies that are coming into the area. Now, this is quite critical, right? Because we do not know what the future technology is going to cost to the environment in our country, or in that project considered for the future, right? So maybe I can just share one or two examples, right? For example, when we talk about introducing new technology in waste management, for example, right? So they want to bring in technologies which include very high temperatures. And I'm not talking about a very low temperature, but it's very high, right? So when the temperatures are very high, our critical point will be, how are we going to contain the energy that is going to be released from the combustion process? So these aspects that we need to be considering towards all these aspects, right? So that will come into design engineering change, probably technology changes, scientific considerations, and then how we want to empower stakeholders. Well, we need to tackle the local stakeholders who are around the project sites, right? So if the project is a large one, then the whole project site we have to consider. We have one project where we were transferring water, raw water, from one state in our country to another state. The other state is in Pahang. The state that I'm talking about is in Selangor. So we have to transfer the water from one state to the other state. And for that, we have to build a massive dam on the other side of the border. And the other side of the boundary, we have a island area. Then from there, we have to tunnel the project. And to do the tunneling itself is a huge project. So to bring the water across the range, on the range. So to the other side, we have to also come out with environmental impact assessments for water treatment plants. These are examples of large projects for a massive scale, which until now have health effects. They are health effects because the local people are trying to manage their lives around these project areas, right? The larger benefits are for the national economy, but for the local people, this still needs some attention. So this is where the empowerment comes in, right? So besides that, of course, institutional changes, the government changes from one government to the other government. Initially, when they are in the opposition, then when they come into the government of the day, then they start have conflicting in the project. So one of the major projects that I can think of is the ECRL project, where we have high-speed train, and the alignment had to be changed several times, right? In fact, 3 times the alignment has been changed. So currently, the third change came because of the change in the government of the day, right? So 3 government changes and 3 alignments changed. So this is an example of how institutional change can cause environmental issues and how the, decisions are being affected. Corporate change is another problem. The company that is given the project has to be viable, right? So this viability is something that needs to be considered by the government agencies, right? So when you are awarding a project, the environmental impact assessment report is very critical, right? I have had the privilege of doing a project in India, right, Hyderabad, for one particular project, and I was very surprised, right, at the impact assessment. It's very critical, very detailed, very critically done. But when it comes to what do you call awarding the project, this project was supposed to be done also in Malaysia. So, but unfortunately in Malaysia, because of the critical conditions they put here, so the project couldn't be done here. So this is an example of how EIA can be done not only locally, but also internationally. But it has its own decision-making process, right? So these are some of the examples. So the EIA study itself is a very basic methodological process, right? It's a planning mechanism to prevent environmental impacts of a proposed project, right? It ensures potential problems are foreseen, especially health issues, and addressed at an early stage of the project planning and design. Now, here we emphasize on the word health issues because human population needs to be considered. Right? Generally, in environmental impact assessment, we are dealing with many groups of people, right? Especially the experts who come from different areas. Some come from environment areas, some come from engineering areas, some come from social areas. So all these people have their own mindset, especially the economic mindset. So if they are dumping in the money, they want to make sure the money is spent well. So this is where the problem will come, right? So if you foresee the problems early, then you can tackle the issues early, right? We have one project where we have funding coming from Japan, right? But the project was delayed in Malaysia for almost 10 years because of the issues of the local population. So when you're dealing with the local population, we need to tackle them early, right? There was some delay in the tackling of the local population. So this become an issue for the development of the project. So I'm just giving an example as one such project. All right. So in what do you call these considerations in a project site, right? There are some considerations that we need to consider. We can divide it into 5 phases, right? Maybe when we look at it in as phase 1, phase 5, phase 1 is a project concept and site selection, right? Project concept must be very clear, right? Any projects, when they discuss with any developer who's going to discuss with any proponent, so they will have to give a good concept. And the site selection must be very carefully done. So the site selection is very important because we want to decide whether the site is suitable for that particular project. For example, if you do a nuclear power plant, right, you have to look at the local residential population, right? If you are very near to residential areas, you're going to cause a lot of public outcry. So it is best to locate it at a place where there's not many residential population around that area, right? This is something that is issue in many countries, not just in Malaysia, but also other countries. In Malaysia, we also have the same problem. So we are also very, very careful when we are awarding projects, right, to avoid public misconception. The phase 2 will be on legal requirements. Now, legal requirements are put in by the government and also by international bodies, right? International bodies, they have their own issues, right? Maybe they come from United Nations, they come from the World Economic Organizations. They have their own conditions, which you have to comply with locally, right? So to do that, we have to consider our local laws, right? Now, if our local laws match with the international requirements, we have no issues. The local laws do not match, then we have a problem. For example, we talk about the Basel Convention on Transboundary Movement of Hazardous Waste. Some companies are manufacturing products where they what do you call come out with waste which cannot be transported overseas. All right, so all from overseas import into the local area. All right, I can think of one good example is the shipwrecking yards in not sure whether it's Mumbai or Calcutta, but they're bringing in old ships and then they're tearing it apart. All right, these ships are actually considered as scheduled waste or considered as hazardous waste. So there need to be some consideration the legal requirement before bringing them in. So the environmental impact assessment has to be done to ensure that there's no impact to the workers or the local population. That is an example of considering legal requirements. The phase 3 is on the environmental impact assessment itself and environmental impact assessment, whether to continue or not. Now, this process will happen first when we are doing the term of reference study on the environmental impact assessment. From there, we will see whether there's any local population involved. If the local population or the receptor population is within the impact area, we call it zone of impact. All right. This zone of impact is in Malaysia, we have set it around 5 kilometers. So in India, it's around 10 kilometers. So depending on the country, they have their own zone of impact. So when you put in the zone of impact, then within the zone of impact, we have to consider what are the human population are going to be there before, during, and after the project. Right now, the most important aspect is after the project. Once the project is awarded, project will be running for maybe 20, 30, or maybe 50 years. Then what do we do after that 50 years? Right? Is it going to be abandoned or is that going to be continued? Now, that is when the health impact assessment will come into the picture, right, to see whether there's going to be any impact to the local population. Then phase 4 will be looking at baseline studies and also looking at residual significant impacts. Generally, baseline studies, we look at air, water, ground water, as well as surface water. Then we look at other aspects like noise, radiation, so on and so forth. So this information we put into your study, and then we want to see whether there's any residual significant impact. Generally, we take the baseline, then we do modeling to see whether there's any impact towards the next 10, 20, 30 years or 40 years. So this is something that we got to consider as we. Then the phase 5 of the project, we look at the mitigating measures and also monitoring process. Right, some mitigating measures we have to put in because during the impact assessment, we discover significant impacts which need to be tackled immediately. So if they need to be tackled, then we come out with a hierarchy of control. Based on the hierarchy of control, we go in for the mitigating measures, right? So based on the mitigating measures, it could be engineering controls, could be administrative controls, or it could be some personal protection. We need to be considered, especially for workers who are working inside. Then based on that, we go into the monitoring aspect. Now, monitoring can be done real time, can be continuous monitoring or 24-hour monitoring. We have projects where we monitor 24 hours, right? Especially the projects like energy, coal-fired power plants, ports, highways, most of the large chemical plants are all kept under intensive monitoring, right? So we have one center in Putrajaya where all this information is channeled. And from there, the monitoring will be done throughout the whole country. All right. So we have about 50 stations, real-time monitoring stations throughout the country, which can monitor 24 hours in real time. All right. So if the project site is in a particular area require attention, then that particular project site also has to put in its own real-time monitoring. This has to be borne by the developers. So these are some of the consideration that is done during before EIA is done. Then in the EIA itself, I was mentioning about project site selection. So there's some general criteria that we can include. For example, buffer zone. So the buffer zone is the zone of impact area. For example, we can include a specific category of development project, for example, industrial projects, waste handling and disposal facilities, toxic hazardous waste, treatment and disposal. Then second one is looking at potential impact from the air pollution, including odor, water, noise pollution, solid waste, toxic waste, and other problems. Then we look at environmental control problems expected in many cases to be providing barriers to neighbors and improving aesthetics. Now, the neighbors we mentioned here are not just the industry or the project site, but also the neighbors adjacent to them, right? They could come from not just other industries, they should come from maybe even residential areas, or they could come from villages, so on and so forth. And improving aesthetic is very critical, right? In one particular project, we have a huge tower being built right next to the village, right? This happened in Kuala Lumpur. I think if some of you have come to the Kuala Lumpur Twin Towers, you see a twin tower out there, but next to it is a village. Actually, there's a village right there in center of KL, right? It's called Kampung Baru Kuala Lumpur. But unfortunately, this aesthetic aspect was not considered. So after they completed, the villagers were complaining, how come we have a tower right in front of our village? Well, that is how the project was done in those days, I mean, many years ago. But now we won't allow that. Then the general criteria include also air pollution, siting in areas where air emissions are seriously affecting local communities. This should be avoided. And that to do that, we locate the point sources. Then from there, we are looking at fugitive sources to minimize air pollution or the impact from project. I will be discussing this in detail in my case study, right? Where a community was far from the project site, but unfortunately, after a while, this particular project got started facing problem, and adjacent areas we have human habitats, right? They started coming with the population growth, townships started developing, and then this led to many problems, right? I'll touch on that then in the case study. Then we talk about the proximity of the facility that should be distant to sensitive potential areas. For example, schools, places of worship, nursing homes, and hospitals. These are very sensitive areas, right? In fact, this problem will come especially for young children, right? These are the area where we have a very sensitive population. For example, very small babies, sometimes young mothers. Sometimes we have elderly staying at home. They are affected badly, right? Because we didn't consider that in the first place. And the hospitals and nurses during the one project, I was called in on emergency, right? There was a major railway project, and the dust particles from the railway project entered into the emergency treatment room of the hospital. So they are required help. So I had to go in and investigate to give them some advice how to reduce this problem, right? Another issue was water pollution. Siting along watercourses can cause eventual degradation and affect critical public water supply, especially drinking water intake, fisheries, and also basic riverine livelihood. So the water catchment areas, as far as possible, should be avoided at all costs, right? Because they are very important for water supply. So this is something that we call environmental loading, right? Then the other general criteria, including geology, hydrology, where we're looking at siting of facilities, example, industrial waste facilities, solid waste facilities, should have due regard for potential contamination on groundwater reserve, right? Especially from leachate, right? Modeling is an example of the plume spread of the toxic hazardous waste from the one side, right? So generally in toxic hazardous waste, we have several monitoring wells, and normally these two wells are where we monitor the water, groundwater, see whether there's any underground movement from the impact area, right? So this is something that is ongoing, right? So to avoid that situation, we have to do early geology and hydrology studies. Then number 6 is on risk of toxic clouds and fire explosion. Generally, we locate outer hazard distances to coincide with the buffer of the industry area and the human settlements. Right now, this is very important so that we do not have an impact from the particular industry or particular process on the human habitats. Right now, some of the most hazardous areas that we can think of are like very heavy industry areas, chemical plants, nuclear facilities, coal-fired power plants. Ports, airports. So that is why when we build them, we need to keep the buffer as far as possible away from the human habitat. But sometimes when you're building it, it is far. But over a period of time, the development starts taking place around this area, and this becomes a risk to the population. This is the reason why health impact assessment was brought into the picture in EIA studies. The other general criteria is like raw material waste disposal sites. These sites must be near to the supply of principal raw material. That means if you have raw material for a particular area, then the waste material from there should be also nearby so that you can dispose of the facilities as quickly as possible, right? Then we have also social and cultural aspects to be considered to avoid populated areas, signing and park areas. Then one of the important aspects here is public participation and local interest groups, which we must consider to get local acceptance, right? In assessment of any cultural impacts and cultural resources, this is necessary in especially areas where we have progenies or the local people staying there who are not willing to move out from their area unless they are given due recognition. So besides that, access, the site must avoid all-weather roads for easy access and exit of raw materials, products, waste by a dedicated road. Secondary roads are not encouraged due to noise impact and traffic congestion. Now, the dedicated road is actually going from the site away from the residential area, right? So generally, our project sites, we try to designate the roads so that they avoid these areas. So conduct a traffic impact assessment for that reason. So especially in logistics areas, high logistic area, for example, in industrial areas, port areas, railway tracks, and highways, right? So all this, we need traffic impact assessment to ensure this is minimized. And then social culture also include avoid populated areas, scenic and park areas, public participation, local interest group must be also consulted, and also assessing cultural impacts. So this is something that we need to consider EIA itself. Then these also include noise studies, especially secluded areas of the BAS. If feasible, suitable buffer and distance from human settlements could be considered. And along with that, we need to consider the land and property value. All right, location of industrial sites will be impacted values. Generally anyone who wants to buy a house near a residential area near we call a industrial area, they will be having problem, right? They will know the value of the house will drop, especially with this pollution sources area. Ecologically, they're also considering unique habitat areas where we have sensitive habitats, like for example, wetlands, mangrove, estuaries, coral reefs, which we need to preserve. Right? In Malaysia, we have declared 10 marine parks. So these marine parks, we do not allow any major development projects, and we do a very thorough environment impact assessment to avoid this impact. We want to preserve the ecology aspects too. Now, from the EIA, we go into the health impact assessment. Now, environmental health impact assessment is a process that predict and evaluate the impact of development project on the environment as well as human health. So since we already do the EIA, so the environment impact is already very clear, but we need to look at the health impact on the workers as well as from the human population, the surrounding area. So it's a component of the environment impact assessment, which is a technical evaluation that helps with more objective decision making. Now, the decision making here we're talking about is the planners, right? For example, there is managers in the industry or the organization or in the corporations as well as in government departments. Sometimes it involves also local government, state government, federal government, right? So the similarity in India and Malaysia is almost the same. We are both Commonwealth countries, so the organizations work almost similarly, all right? So generally in environment impact assessment or health impact assessment, the assessment is done and then the report is passed to the state government or the federal government for them to make a decision. So the decision makers will consult with the corporate bodies, then they will make a decision. So this is where the decision making will come, and it has to be as objective as possible. So when we talk about the environmental impact assessment itself, it has some typical steps, right? Generally, they'll have a project analysis of status quo, prediction of impacts, assessment of impacts, recommendations, communication of results, evaluation of overall procedures. Now, what we do in this include all this screening, scoping, assessment, recommendations, reporting, monitoring, evaluation, and also all this will come in a nutshell, right? So the report will consider that. Now, to do this health impact assessment, in Malaysia, the environmental quality prescribed activities or environmental impact assessment order 2015 requires an EIA for certain activities. They've scheduled it out in two schedules, Schedule 1 and Schedule 2. So in that, they have listed out what are the industries that need to, what are the activities that need to be assessed for EIA. And after that, we decide on the health impact assessment for the process. Now, for that reason, we got to understand there are some of the impacts that I took from WHO. All right, so these are generally the health impacts that are happening throughout the world. So when we look at it globally, we have from there we can get an idea of what is happening locally. Right, so the air pollution, inadequate water sanitation, chemicals, and biological agents. Then we talk about radiation. Then we talk about community noise, occupational risk, agriculture practices, built environments, and also climate change. So all this happens all over the world. So we can use this as a potential exposure risk factors to people at home, workplace, and also communities. And then when we look at the 10 top causes of death from the environment, now 8.5 million people out of 13.7 million deaths caused by the environment are due to non-communicable diseases. This is reported by WHO. So there are 10 top causes. Right? Number one is ischemic heart disease, 2.4 million deaths. Chronic respiratory disease, 1.9 million deaths. Third is cancer, deaths, about 1.8 million. Then we have unintentional injuries or accidents at 1.5 million. Then we have respiratory infections at 1.5 million. Six is stroke, 1.5 million. Seventh is diarrheal diseases. They're followed by diabetes, malaria, and also neonatal conditions. So these are all the top diseases. They can be either communicable or non-communicable. All right, but the main problem, their issues are non-communicable are the ones that are leading, right? Especially heart disease, respiratory diseases, cancers, accidents, and respiratory infections. This could come from major projects that are happening in any location, right? So we need to consider that when we are doing health impact assessment. Then when we look at the bigger picture, then we look at global deaths are linked to the environment. We are looking at something like 24% of all deaths, right? That is coming from environmental impacts. So we need to consider that. The others can be due to war and so on and so forth, but basically 24% are coming from environmental impacts. When we look by regions, so where is it happening? All right. Now, when we look at the location, we have the major area will be Southeast Asia, right? Southeast Asia region with 4.1 million deaths. So that includes Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, India, China, and so on and so forth, Mongolia, all right, with 4.1 million deaths, all right. Then we have 3.6 million in the Western Pacific region. Then we have 2.5 million in Africa region. Then we have 1.4 million in European region. There were 1.1 million in the Americas, another 984,000 in the Eastern Mediterranean region. So these are deaths by region. So based on this, we can also consider the population intensity of the location, because most populous countries are China and India. They're almost maybe half the population of the world in these two countries. So there's no doubt any projects that you do there is going to have an impact, right? So we got to consider that as well when we are doing health impact assessment. So this algorithm for health impact assessment goes through this, right, on the screening, scoping, analysis, reporting, evaluation, monitoring. Then we look at the development phase of the proposed plan. Then we look at the policy implementation phase. So basically the first three stages for development phase, the policy stage, we look at reporting and evaluation. Then we look at establishing the report itself. It will look into the detail of how quickly we can establish the relevance of the policy. Is a HIA required or not? The question of HIA required or not required needs to be answered. This is a problem that comes up in any project, right? Now, the other issues like identify key issues, public concern, rapid assessment, making recommendation, then taking action, all this will come later. So how do you make assessment on whether you need to do HIA or not? This will become critical in any project. So this is where we have several frameworks being developed, right? This is a health risk and impact assessment framework, right, where we lead from the sources, hazard, exposure, risk to health impacts and risk minimization. This can come from what do you call it? This is a modified project assessment by Prof. Jamal Ishamashim and Dr. Adman. They created this framework by looking into detail, right? So they were looking at the details of various sources, right? Then you're looking at the hazard coming from various sources too. Then you're looking at also exposure coming from different sources. And then they're looking at the risk coming from various way of assessment. Right. Then when they're looking at it, then they included the population risk, then they included the health impact coming from that, whether it's going to be acute or chronic. Then after that, they're going to see whether how you want to minimize the risk. To minimize the risk, they have another proposal there. So this is first how you going to carry out health impact assessment. If you're going to carry out the health impact assessment, this can be used as a framework. Right. This is currently used in Malaysia as one of the frameworks. Right. Then WHO framework is very straightforward. It follows the same, as I mentioned earlier, screening, scoping, appraisal, reporting, decision-making, monitoring, and follow-up. And then some questions to be asked and what actions to be taken. Right. They are going by the two phases, right? The same thing, the policy-based phases and so implementation phase. And then the stakeholders need to be engaged, and then they will also participate in the different stages. Generally, stakeholder participation should come at all stages. So this is to help prevent any unnecessary problem later on, right? So these are some of the tools and toolkits produced by WHO. And if you look at it, there are so many tools to be used, right? You're not necessary to use all the hard tools. You can select the tools that are required for your particular area. For example, you have air pollution, health, air quality standards, for example, air quality modeling, right? For example, you have epidemiological studies, right? You are looking at routine information systems, health impact information systems, burden of disease. So all these tools can be utilized as and when necessary, right? So, but this depends on the study requirement. Right, but these tools are available online. They are available at WHO, and anyone can access to it. So, basically in Malaysia, we are using this key steps here. All right. So the key steps same as what I mentioned earlier. We do the screening, but in the screening we look at all proposed projects to be under Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 of the Environmental Order 2015, where they will be looking into possible negative impact on health of the local community. That is number one. Then the second stage will be scoping. We are looking at the key objectives, identifying stakeholders and planning for engaging them, identifying sensitive receptors and the relevant exposure pathways, looking at the public issues and impact to be studied, and then defining the boundaries of the health impact assessment study and identifying method of the study. Generally, what we consider here, we have to consider whether there's going to be any significant impact. So the project significant impact is best to do impact. But I will show you the checklist later. Right. Then we do the third part will be to profile the existing public health status based on the provided baseline information from the health status. We take from the primary data, relevant secondary data, and the relevant health survey reports within the zone of impact. And then we look at the Ministry of Health information sources, health informatics statistics, for aggregated data. And then later from that profiling, then we do the assessment. When we do the assessment, then we can do the prediction of the impact. We can look at the prediction of the worst case scenario. Then we look at the acute and chronic health impacts. Then we look at the prediction of health impact of all sensitive receptors within the zone of impact. Then we do the prediction of cumulative health impact and utilizing probability science and health risk modeling. And modeling also include worst case scenario and also predicting significant positive impacts, if any. Right? Some projects, they have positive impacts. For example, you have water transfer project I was mentioning earlier. So of course the positive impacts will be we have good water supply for the the population. That was very important for the region. That's an example. Then for recommendations, we're looking at mitigating measures and also levels of prevention. And finally, report submissions, right? Report submissions to the Ministry of Health for review by the various divisions, right? Disease Control Division, Generating Services Division, State Health Department concerned. And besides that, of course, the Department of Environment, right? The final one-stop center will be the Department of Environment, where all these reports will be accumulated. And from there, the reports will go to the various government agencies for approval. That is for the process, right? The HIA process and key outputs. Now, generally, health effects of air pollution, for example, it can lead to headaches, fatigue, right? It can lead to respiratory illness and so on and so forth. If we look at water and pollution, we can look at probably gastroenteritis and so on and so forth. If soil contamination, it can lead to pesticide infection, it can lead to bacteria, parasite, chemicals, and so on and so forth. So all this soil contamination doesn't come straight to us. We don't eat soil, we eat the livestock, the farming output, like vegetables, so on and so forth. But they take a role in our health. So they have a major role in cardiovascular diseases and so on and so forth. That is why we mentioned that at the beginning of the presentation. The impact of on health comes from environmental degradation, right? And besides that, the impact of climate change, human health. Now, the existing situation is already bad. Right now, it is made even worse by climate change. Right. So for climate change, we need to consider other health impacts. Right. So this is from the World Economic Forum, and they are mentioning it as such that we have to consider several aspects: air pollution, changes in vector ecology, increasing allergens, water quality impacts, water and food supply impacts, environmental degradation, extreme heat, and severe weather. So any one of these at any time will cause health problems, right? So it is already happening, and we can see the impact, right? Air pollution, we are looking at asthma, cardiovascular diseases, right? We are looking at severe weather, we are looking at injury, fatalities, mental health impacts, all right? We are looking at vector changes, we are looking at diseases like malaria, dengue, so on and so forth, all right? So this is some of the examples, right, of environmental impact coming from climate change. So they are just aggravated from the process. Humans need time to adapt, right? You're not just human, but also the environment itself needs time to adapt. So for adaptation, that's a long process, right? It doesn't happen overnight. So for that reason, these problems will stay for a while until the time for adaptation takes place. So earlier I was mentioning whether we need to do a health impact assessment in the EIA. So in Malaysia, we use this guideline or the checklist, right? So we have a question about a project being proposed, and the questions will be put in the center, and whether we're inclined towards the HIA or not inclined against the HIA, we will answer accordingly. So generally, the questions will go whether the project is the first of its kind in Malaysia, or whether the literature mentioning health impact, has the previous EIA study has similar project impacts, are there any human receptor population downstream or upstream? Then does the project require any detailed EIA? Are there any potential negative health impact? So these are questions they need to ask. The last three questions are very critical. Are the potential negative health impacts likely to be serious? And are there any communities concerned about potential impacts? And are there potential negative health impacts likely to be disproportionate, greater for some groups in the population? Example, because of age. So if we are talking about yes, in that area, any one of that three items, if we put yes, definitely we have to conduct health impact assessment, right? This is how we review in Malaysia. But the checklist is long, right? Two pages actually. This is the second part of the checklist. So then after that, we decide whether to proceed or not. Once we make a decision, then we can go into the health risk assessment itself. So to conduct and improve the quality of policy decision, we like to look at the positive and negative impacts, right? Of course, the health impact is definitely from disease outbreak. So based on the process, proposed program and policies. So if you currently have a problem, if we have a new project, it's going to add on to the problem that is already there. So for that reason, we need to do a health risk assessment. Now, to do the health risk assessment, we can do it in two parts. First, we do a quantitative health risk assessment, where we divide into 5 parts of issues: identification, hazard identification, dose response assessment, exposure assessment, and we look at risk characterization, whether they are acute or chronic risk, or whether there's any uncertainty in the analysis. And then along with that, we still have to do a qualitative health risk assessment. Then this will be discussed in detail in 3.0 later, right? Now, for 2.3, I'm looking at, so first part, we're looking at environment impact assessment. Second, we looked at environment impact assessment and health impact assessment. Now we're looking at sustainable environment management. To look at sustainable environment management, generally we use ISO 14001. Right? ISO 14000 is already established in the world as a standard for environment management system. So for that reason, we use ISO 14001 for obvious purposes. So for that reason, we look at better management of natural resources. Then we look at whether we can balance the ecological, economic, and social goals. Then we look at also meeting the international requirements for ISO 14001, all right, for standardization purposes. Then besides that, we use EMS to make it possible for an organization to continually improve its environment performance, all right? There are standards for that reason, right? So for that reason, to achieve global sustainable development goals, and to achieve that SDG goals, we need to take regulation of necessary processes, responsibility and documentation, and then integrate the above aspect into a structured and systemic overall concept. So this will comply with the international standard. All right. Now, ISO 14001 is very common throughout the world, but it has to be given legal backing, right? So in Malaysia, we have included environment management in our law so that companies practicing ISO 14001 have lesser, what you call, chance of being done any enforcement, right? So they are able to avoid enforcement by voluntarily complying with the environment management systems. So this is one of the positive aspects of this management system. So in achieving United Nations Sustainable Development Goal in line with ISO 14000, so we can match the SDG goal with the ISO 14001, whether it's goal number 1, 2, 3, or whatever. All right, it's generally achievable. So in any project, we must look at all the 17 goals, all right, to ensure that all the 17 goals are touched upon by each project. Okay, it shouldn't be selective, right? And some corporations or some companies, what they do, they are doing selective SDG. This may not be good for the environment in the long run, especially when they have health impact, right? So just note that as a point. Now, in this model, talking about environmental sustainability. So we talk about sustainability, then we talk about different aspects. For example, sustainable industrialization, international cooperation, behavioral changes, daily life, ecological restoration, ecotourism, waste recycling and reuse, wastewater treatment and reuse, use of renewable energy, use of green and public transport. This is going on now, right? So if you want to make your industry more sustainable, definitely we have to introduce sustainability. So for that reason, we need to bring in engineering controls. So for engineering controls, we need to have different types of technology coming into the picture. So this will be the future. For example, if we are talking about energy inputs, so energy inputs I'll be discussing later. So when we look about fossil fuel energy compared to the renewable energy, then we are looking at the benefits of the renewable energy as a long run benefit. So this will be something that we need to consider in the sustainable environment management. So for that first part, I've already completed the introduction and also the EIA and HIA. But we go into methodology and assessing environmental and health impacts. Doctor, should we take a 5 minutes break?
Sure, sir.
All right. So just 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Participants, we will be back in 5 minutes. We can have a break.
How long do I have?
Sir, we are scheduled till 3:30.
How many more
I think
minutes?
around 25 minutes or so.
Okay. Thank you. Malaysia time is different. Shall we continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so looks like we have running short of time, so I'll try and cover as much as I can. Right, methodology in assessing the environmental and health impacts will come next. Now, we are looking at methodologies using three approaches, right? One is collaboration between the community experts, then the experts together with the health impact assessment doing the evaluation. Then from there, we make a decision making. So these three parts will come into the main environment health impact assessment framework. Now, in the action structured around the four main objectives that we need to do, we need to look at improving public health and legal regulatory framework. These especially we are dealing with contaminated land, right? Mitigating a negative health impact and positive ones by given policy or project legislation, environmental health, medical, but also social economic data methodologies, and improving public participation and communication. All right. Later, when we look at the detailed methodology, this is the one that I was mentioning earlier, right? Used by the DOE in Malaysia, right? It was introduced in 2012 as a guidance document by the Department of Environment, and then later it was adopted in 2021 again for more detailed assessment, right? Then when we go into the utilizing sustainable management, I'm skipping these two parts because I already discussed it earlier, right? Then we go into utilizing sustainable management. Now, there are some elements of sustainable management that we need to consider. Three things that we have to consider: long-term profit, economic growth, environmental sustainability, and societal sustainability. Now, for these three to work, we need to make sure that all three are balanced state, right? If not, the project will not be sustainable in the long run, right? So in Malaysia, the ministry was formed to look into sustainability as well in the management of the projects. So that is why they are very strict in awarding projects. In fact, recently we even closed down projects because of problems facing that the public face. All right. So sustainable management takes into account the fact that irresponsible economic actions make it difficult for the division of labor and a livable planet in the long run. It is concerned with people's long-term well-being, including business itself. The researchers on corporate sustainability management suggest that they may have corporate profits are based on a lack of understanding of environmental societal challenges. Now, this will be a critical area, right? So profit must be matched with societal responsibility. And then we are looking at consumer and investor considerations in companies, example, ESG or environmental social governance practices when deciding whether to buy their products or invest in them. So now this is a new dimension where, for example, bankers, right? Like, for example, the Malaysian Stock Exchange, they've included this compulsory for all corporations to come out with ESG reports. So to look at ESG reports, then they are people who are buying stock market, they are looking stocks, they are looking into this area for this purpose. So the number of environmental related lawsuits is also on the rise. So this could be another reason why the corporations are very cautious about malpractices. All right. So business practices are focused on social responsibility to create an environment of fairness, reducing conflict within the company and supporting populations. So there are three elements to be considered. So for example, long-term profit and economic growth, then I will look at whether the importance of long-term growth is emphasized. Then looking at environmental sustainability and also sustainable. This sustainability also goes along with circular economic practices, reducing carbon footprints. Then we're looking at supply chain sustainability to minimize environmental burden. Then we in fact are planning to introduce hydrogen energy for transportation. All right, it's already being started in one of our transportation industry. The societal sustainability management is also being looked into to ensure that the long term there's the population is more productive, right, and with less complaints and health problems. And then another approach in sustainable management was in energy use. In two studies by Dr. Gunasekaran, Dr. Gunasekaran mentioned that a detailed comparative study showed that LPG fuel equipment use about 38% more energy than electric fuel equipment, but 0.5% cheaper and significantly less polluting. This is one of the area of renewable energy introduction. So solar, what applications was a viable option for commercial restaurants, right? Commercial restaurants were found to be using a lot of LPG, and these are not very sustainable in the long run. So they are thinking of using solar panels. So the gradual increment of population is another proportional to their energy demand. Indonesia estimated the energy demand will increase up to 116 million tons of oil equivalent per year. So this GHG emissions impact have a lot of problem for the corporate sector, all right, especially the energy sector, industry sector. So for that reason, they are thinking of what you call diversifying into solar energy, maybe hydrogen fuel, so on and so forth, right? So this will be the future scenario. So the natural gas, along with alternative sources such as solar farm, biogas, biomass plants, depict Malaysia's electricity generation distribution. This is already happening, right? So they are thinking of going into other aspects of energy generation to curb emissions, right? Then in this fifth area, I'll be discussing on my case studies, all right? The first one I'm picking up is a case study on hazardous waste recycling plant, where we are using a QRA as quantitative assessment, pseudo qualitative assessment in an EIA study, right? This was a study I conducted myself, right? For example, in the process description of hazardous chemical recovery plant, all right, this particular industry was actually recovering polyaluminum chloride, which is used in water purification, effluents plants, and so on and so forth. So to manufacture this, they have to use different processes. So, for example, they have 6 lots involved. So the lot 1 will be doing recovery of the PAC. Then the lot 2 will be purification of hydrochloric acid. And also they are also manufacturing copper cement nuggets drum, which are byproducts of the process. Then they're looking at other scrap material that comes out from the process because they are recyclers. So when you bring in, they also bringing in used PAC, and then they recover precious elements, and then after that they produce the PAC that is pure, and then they send it out again. All right. So this is how they manufacture. It's like a circular economy, and they are also practicing what you call closed loop system. So they are major processes will be in 1, 2, lot 1 and 2, lot 5 and 6. Then you have the storage in all the 6 lots. Then after that, when we are conducting the hazard identification, then we divided into, because it's a hazardous chemical, so basically most of the hazardous areas will be chemical. So for hazard rating is 3. With agent here, we are talking about the risk rating. We are talking about chlorine fumes released from chlorinator before and during processing. Then that was given as a rating of 3. Then we're looking at risk and impact on company, the corrosive, and also and so forth. And environmental impact with fire pollution and so on and so forth. The human impact, that, so on and so forth. Now, this happened because this particular location is near to residential area. All right, it's nearby to commercial area. So they are worried about death and injury from any emission, especially fumes. Then chemical from polyaluminum chloride, it is very corrosive and toxic because of very low pH, and the possibility of the environmental damage and also other irreversible damage is there. So we were giving it, where the control is very good. So we know the hazard is high, but the control is good. So we put it as 1, right? So, but why we select that is because of that process is under control. So in the third consideration is for hydrochloric acid before and during processing. Again, we were looking at all the other impacts. Then we're looking at ammonia released from reactors during processing. Again, we are looking at the impacts. So we're already putting at different ratings here. Right? Then for the rating purposes, we use this matrix. Right? These are metrics adopted from the Department of Environment 2004. They have a guideline for risk assessment. Then from there, we managed to get it up. So if I put it as 3 is considered high for likelihood of happening. The consequence, if I put it as 3, is also high. So if I multiply 3 by 3, then I get 9, so high. So just now I was talking about 3 and 1. So usually it will fall around 3 medium or 2 at risk, high risk, and sometimes we'll fall into high risk here. All right, so depending on which one. So there was none at 9, but they were high risk, yes. So from there we can make a decision, right? The decision, we go into a quantitative risk assessment. And this is a what you call formula used by Department of Environment, where we use a risk score. method, right? So we're looking at this risk score method. Then we will come out with this table, right? We call it risk reference table. And then for each chemical, we again calculate the risk cost. So when we calculate it out, we came to a risk score of 4. All right, risk score again for chlorine gas at 4, and then ammonia gas at 2, then polyaluminum chloride spill at 2. Then we come out with the worst case scenario of what will happen. Right now, for the worst case scenario, we have to do air dispersion modeling. Now, that is a different study. All right, this study that I'm showing is only on the HRA part. All right, the air pollution dispersion model we need to refer to match together with this output. So what we found was that they also had sulfur dioxide emissions, nitrogen dioxide, particulate matter, as well as hydrogen chloride. So our main problem was hydrogen chloride, because that was the raw material being used as manufacturing chemical. So from there, we know whether there's receptor populations or not. So there are two receptor areas. One is a village, the other one is a residential area, which is near to the area within the recommended levels. But this chemical that came out is within the recommended level. But even though it's within the recommended level, it's still considered as a worst case scenario, right? So for that reason, we wanted the pollution modeling. We wanted to ensure that it's controlled as far as possible. And we wanted to ensure that there are scrubbers which may fail in the worst case scenario. So this will be the reason why we are worried. There are 5 scrubbers which they have at the moment, 2, and they are intending to build another 3 more to make it more acceptable. So this is how we control in the industrial setting, right? But the industry is an existing industry going for upgrading. Then the other aspect will be extremely high, will be for chlorine, right? So chlorine, generally ammonia and polychloride were below threshold levels, but chlorine was high. So we wanted to contain the HCl and hydrochloric acid, as well as chlorine control measures by using a QRA approach, right? So we use both HRA and also QRA. All right, so here the likelihood will be extremely, if you are looking at high, very extremely high. All right, so if it is, we are looking at consequence, we are looking at major, right? So we're going for extremely high at this major area, right? So that is how we're looking at the health impact from this project. The second case study, that project was approved and was kept under control. And we also, we also put in control measures, including continuous emission monitoring, so that it is kept under strict control. All right. The next case study is on HRA study on a rubber manufacturing factory. Now, this is the one I mentioned earlier, where there's a public complaint from the local authority. And this local authority was approached by the local consumer association. And the public was complaining about the impact from the factory, right? Of course, the factory is manufacturing raw material, rubber, and they're manufacturing rubber products, which was for export. But unfortunately, the public was complaining because of odor problem, and there was a health impact. So when the complaint came, so I was asked to do an independent study, and then we had to prepare a report for the local authority as well as state secretary for the state. Right, based on that, the president of the local authority as well as the honorable chief minister made some recommendations. So these are the parameters that we measure: noise, ventilation, air quality, air exchange, whether they have major hazard or not. Then we were looking at whether the risk controls were working. Then we were considering the HRA. Now, the HRA we consider as extremely high again because of possible carcinogenic effects from the rubber industry. And then there was also no bunds for spillage control in the factory. So these again become high risk. So risk management decision, we gave them either to relocate or to operate during the time. Now, this happened some time ago. This happened in 2010. So the particular factory, after 2 years of operations within the confined time period, they were asked to relocate. So currently the factory is no more there. They relocated to another area, less industrial, to a what we call a less populous area, right? More rural area, in a agriculture estate. So there, it doesn't have any more impact to the local population. So this is something that happened in a local industry area together with the residential area. Originally, the factory was by itself, but the surrounding population came in because of development. So the local authority kept approving projects that caused this problem. But unfortunately, in the long run, they already made a profit. So the management had to move from there. Right. The third case study is on probabilistic human health risk assessment using Monte Carlo simulation. So here, this is an industry which we are looking at possible impacts, all right, from certain uncertain parameters. This is a mining industry. So from mining industry, we want to look at whether there's any effect to the population, all right? So they were looking at 2D Monte Carlo simulation for capturing variability uncertainty. Then after that, they're looking at risk indices, all right? So you can look at high and low, all right? The one in red, very high, one in yellow will be low, all right? So this is how modeling distributions will work, right? Now, based on that, then we can consider, all right, how you want to consider the health impact from this activity. And here we are talking about arsenic poisoning, right? So which is triggered by the human activities, all right? Then the results of that, we are looking at whether we want to continue with the site or we want to look at some risk controls. So they were looking at risk controls as a maximum possible exposure limit, right? So we want to ensure that the arsenic poisoning is reduced by looking at risk controls, right? But the modeling will show this. And from the modeling, then we can do the risk controls as planned. So the risk corresponding to the central tendency show the exposure is higher and the constant level of risk in most of the samples. The investigation on current water supply sources in the residential areas and their risk values accordingly identify a potential possible action plan. So if you are looking at water supply in this area, definitely they are going to have some arsenic pollution. All right. Currently, we are also facing the same problem from old mining area where we have old tin mines which are left over, and these tin mines are also emitting arsenic into the river. Right, but I'm using an international one because I don't want to use the local one because it's very sensitive. It's a government secret, actually. Right, now I go to the next one on types of disease transmission. Now, generally, for infected person, a healthy person, you need to have direct contact or by air, indirect contact by food, insects, or by rabbit animal. So then only you can get this infection, right? Generally, when we talk about outbreaks, we are talking about COVID-19 was a classic example, right? Infected person and getting the infection. Now, when we look at communicable, non-communicable diseases, this is another problem. Non-communicable diseases is what I showed in the transmission. Non-communicable disease is what happens within our body. All right. So this will happen depending on whether we are triggering these infection agents, right? So some of the examples of breakdown. This is an example of what happened in Malaysia. All right. We have a breakdown of risk factors present in cardiovascular disease patients. Now in Malaysia, we have 1.7 million people who are currently living with 3 major risk factors. All right. I'm one of them. All right. We have diabetes, high cholesterol, hypertension. So you can fall into one of these categories. And we have 2 categories also combined, can be combined, or it can be all 3 combined. So all 3 combined will be at 1.1%. So the 1.7 million people have all these 3. All right. So this is the risk factor we have to consider when we consider health impact assessment. So in any population, we have to work it out. So 1.7 million people out of 33 million. So that is the risk factor for Malaysia. So most probably it's like 1 in 6, right, will have one of these risk factors. So when we are considering any project site, this is something that we have to consider in the long term, right? So high cholesterol is the most prevalent risk factor at 38%, yet it's most underdiagnosed and receives less focus. Now, what cholesterol has to do with health impact assessment? Because these are underlying factors that are in the human body. But when we consider new projects, we never look at the impact from this to the health, right? This will trigger, right, human health problems. So this will long-term effect, right? Not under short-term, but it comes under long-term, right? So some of the impacts that we already identify under the disease burden, right, by mortality, right? So we are here by male and by female. Both have the same problem. Malignant neoplasms, unintentional injuries, respiratory functions are all similar to what WHO reported. So the major problem will come from cancers, right, accidents, respiratory infection, respiratory diseases, then diabetes mellitus, infectious diseases, digestive diseases. So all these will come as in sequence. All right. Now, when we have this, then we know that when we are doing risk factors analysis, so the risk factor match the outcome of the disease. So here we are looking at deaths, right? Then these are the example of top 10 deaths in Malaysia. All right. So on one side, we have diseases of the circulatory system, respiratory, and so on and so forth. There we have neoplasms and so on and so forth. So this is reported on one side. The one on the left is Ministry of Health hospitals. The one on the right is private hospitals. So you can see if you have money, you can have different kind of treatment in the private and government hospitals. But so when we are considering health impact assessment, we need to consider the government hospital in comparison with the private hospital, because the public will generally go to the government hospital, all right, especially the poorer population and those people in the rural areas, right, compared to the industrial areas or developed areas. Then again, the top diseases. Then generally, for discussion purposes, I suppose I'm running short of time here. So consistent with global phenomena, Malaysia is also facing the re-emergence of communicable diseases such as tuberculosis, malaria, although the incidence is still relatively low compared to other Asian countries. The rate of dengue fever is dramatically increasing at an annual rate of 30.7%. This is tremendous increase. Prevalence of non-communicable diseases, however, is generally increasing. Within 5 years of the National Health Mobility Survey interval, there was about 15% increase in prevalence of diabetes mellitus, although the prevalence of hypertension was slightly decreased. Nearly half of the detectable diabetes cases were not priorly diagnosed. So this is a problem of diagnosis. Now, why this happened? Because of no consideration of underlying causes in relation to environmental impacts. Right, this is the problem. Where any disease will have this disease triangle. You have the agent, host, and also the environment. So agent, host, we can describe, but we cannot describe the environment because it's an unknown factor. Right, it depends on where you stay, what development is taking place, and so on and so forth. This is the problem with our environment. So generally, when you look at this simple risk matrix, so this is where you look at the likelihood consequence and also the impact from the consequence, right? So this is a simple risk matrix we can use in any situation, all right? So the reasons for using health impact assessment, very simple, is to promote cross-sectoral working, participatory approach in the values of community. We want to consider the public participation here. Then the best available evidence is provided to decision makers, and then to improve health and reduce inequalities. This is a positive approach. It's appropriate for policy strategies, plans, and programs and projects. It's also very timely, and it links sustainable development and resource management, along with many people can use HIE, right? That's the main reason why we use it. So some of the aspects that I like to touch on is top climate issues that impact companies, right? So resource scarcity losses, changing consumption patterns, regulation of emissions. So now we are going to face carbon tax and emissions issues soon. And then regulatory political uncertainty, operational impacts, shareholder pressure, right? This is something that we need to consider. We always have to look at the corporate sector. So Deloitte have done a good job on that, right? So the Deloitte has also mentioned about top 10 steps in sustainable management best practices. For example, taking holistic approach, determining, measuring key metrics periodically, prioritizing issues to be solved, developing roadmaps, collaborating with other sustainable companies, modifying recruitment policy, transforming corporate culture, seizing product service model, considering carbon offsetting, and getting certified. So all these 10 best methods are being used for sustainable management in the world. So finally, in conclusion, sustainable management is important for corporate aspects. According to Deloitte, most businesses are impacted by climate change and environmental issues, either directly or indirectly, as a result of resource scarcity, changing patterns of preferences, regulation emissions, regulatory political uncertainty, operational impacts, and also shareholder pressure. So generally, this will decide on whether the project is going to be sustainable or not. Remember, I was mentioning about profitability, acceptability, and this is the thing. Right? So end of the day, we have to come out with the issue. Then at the end, we have any burning issues, maybe like to ask some questions or answer. I can just try and answer one or two. Dr. Any questions or
Yes,
answers?
sir. Participants, if you have any questions or would like to interact with sir, please unmute yourself. You can also type in the chat box.
Yeah, you can either put in, I can't see the chat box here. Maybe you could read for me. If there are any questions, you can put in the chat box and Dr. Divani can read it to me. Questions?
Thank you, sir, for a fascinating, amazing lecture. It will help to enhance for a research area and for further study and innovation in the future. Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay. All right, these are some references. For anyone who like to contact me, you can use my email. I've given the 3 email address.
So indeed, sir is very humble, always cooperative and ready to support. So I motivate the participants to get in touch with sir for any future research or support which you would like to have from sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
For enlightening us today.
So can I leave the meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hello, Saurabh, sir. Is I'm audible? Saurabh Sakhre, sir, is I'm audible?
Yes. You are audible. Please go ahead.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am,
now
you
we
are
have
audible.
a scientist, Saurabh Sakhre, sir, is a distinguished senior scientist at the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, National Institute for Interdisciplinary Science and Technology, under the Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India. He is a part of the Environmental Technology Division based in Trivandrum, Kerala. With a solid academic foundation as a civil engineer graduate and a postgraduate in environmental engineering, scientist Saurabh Sakhre has developed extensive professional expertise in various areas of environmental science and technology. He is an accredited functional area expert certified by QCI NABET, highlighting his capabilities and credibility in environmental assessment and management. Prior to his current role, he served as a project scientist at CSIR NIRI Nagpur, where he is contributed to critical environmental research and projects. His professional portfolio includes successful execution of numerous national and international projects with a significant contribution to environmental impact assessment studies, on-site treatment system design, and land use land cover analysis with climate detection. Scientist Saurabh Sakhre has also demonstrated expertise in air quality modeling, water pollution prevention and controls, noise pollution monitoring and mapping, and e-waste invention. His work has led to numerous research publications reflecting his commitment to advancing environmental science and technology. With his deep knowledge, hands-on expertise, and impactful research, scientist Saurabh Sakhre continues to play a vital role in addressing environmental challenges and contributing to sustainable development initiative in India and beyond. I welcome you, sir, on the behalf of IPS Academy Civil Engineering Department.
Thank you.
Please proceed for the same. Thank you, sir.
Sure. So I hope my voice is clear to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, a bit low.
Sir, please more audible.
Okay. So my slides are visible to you?
Yes, sir. Visible.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the nice introduction. And just a minor correction. I was not a project scientist at NIRI. I was a project fellow there. So I wish all the participants who are here at the ATAL FDP conducted by IPS Academy Indore for enhancing their skills and further readings on the developments in the subject area. So I will be sharing my thoughts. It will not be a lecture or something. I'll be just sharing my experience of working in CSIR from last 11 years on how I have used remote sensing and GIS in micro environment studies. So, Madam has already spoken about me. I am Saurabh Sakhre. I am basically a civil engineer. And then afterwards, I have completed my MTech in environmental engineering. And presently, I am working as senior scientist in National Institute for Interdisciplinary Science and Technology, Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala. So, it is a constituent lab of CSIR. So I will just give a brief of CSIR, what CSIR is. I know you all are faculties, you may be aware, but I'll just give a glimpse of what CSIR is. Then I'll just give a brief about remote sensing, GIS, and also I'll show some case studies. So as far as CSIR is concerned, its full form is Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, and it was established in 1942. And if you see, there are 39 labs of CSIR, and it covers a wide area of expertise from radio and space physics to oceanography, geophysics, to up to environmental engineering and information technology, in which I am also working. And by now, CSIR has significant technological intervention in many areas with regard to food, drinking water, health, and environment sector. And I don't know how many of you may be aware of that, but this election during election, when you go and they put an indelible ink on your finger, that ink was also developed by CSIR. And also everyone knows today that Gujarat is the hub of milk and milk related products, and there are a lot of industry related to milk. So one of our labs, CFTRI, Central Food Research Technological Institute, has played a significant role in forming this kind of industries, food related industries in 70s and 80s, which we are reaping fruits in 2024. So as far as my institute is concerned, it is the National Institute for Interdisciplinary Science and Technology NIST. It was established in 1972, and you can see here that we are situated at southernmost tip of our country. You can see here NIST, and after that only Kanyakumari, and then afterward there is no land, only sea. Okay. So we are having 5 technological divisions which are engaged in various R&D, namely agro processing and technology, chemical sciences and technology, material science and technology, microbial processes, and environmental technology, in which I also work. So this is the brief of what CSIR is. So now what I will do is that I have been assigned time from 3:30 to 5. So I hope in 1.5 hours, around 50 minutes to 1 hour 5 minutes, I'll take the class, or maybe 1 hour 15 minutes, and remaining we can keep for some questions. So remote sensing is actually a very important area of working, and Niti Aayog, as you all may be aware, Niti Aayog is the think tank of our country. They have categorized remote sensing in one of the game-changing technologies of the future, because remote sensing has such an immense potential that you are going to see in my further slides, that it can reduce human work significantly. At the same time, real-time monitoring and decision making can be made. That is the reason I thought that first I'll just give a brief of what remote sensing is. So what remote sensing means is that, as the name indicates, sensing something remotely, right? Means without going to that place or without going to that site, we have to sense something. So technically, it is the art and science of obtaining information about an object or feature without physically coming in contact with that object or feature. So only when infrared or the EMR spectrum waves will be reflected from the Earth's surface or any object which we want to study, it will again be recorded at the sensor, and we will study that what it may be. So what we do is that whatever remotely collected data we obtain, we analyze it using various features that I will show you in my subsequent slide. So if I go with the technical definition of remote sensing, it will be like remote sensing is detecting and measuring electromagnetic energy emanating or reflected from distant objects. Okay, it is what? It is measuring electromagnetic energy. So I'm only concerned about the electromagnetic energy reflected from the object, which is emanating or reflected from distant objects made of various materials. These two things are very important. It may be a tree, it may be a road, it may be a forest, it may be a lake, it may be a pond, or anything. So these all materials will have a different electromagnetic reflectance, and that difference we will use to classify that what could be there on the land. Okay. So surface parameters are inferred through the measurement and interpretation of the electromagnetic energy radiation from the Earth's surface. That is what we do. And based on this difference, we can classify object based on their class or type, their substance. We can also find out what substance it may be, and their spatial distribution. Spatial means something which is distributed in 2 dimension XY plane. And we give a third parameter to that Z, it can become a 3-dimension map also. But usually we work in 2D maps. So when I say EMR spectrum, actually whole EMR spectrum I may not be using while I'm doing remote sensing. So what we do is that first I am showing this map, which we usually see in our 11th and 12th class physics also. So from gamma rays to up to radio waves, we have our electromagnetic energy spectrum. But when we talk about remote sensing, mostly we work in visible VIR, visible infrared region. As you can see here in color, it is from 0.40 micrometer to 0.70 micrometers. From 0.40 to 0.48 blue, then blue to green, green to yellow, orange to red, and red to 0.7 infrared. So in this region only we work. So here it will be 0.70. 0.05 unit more will be increased. These 3-4 bands we use to obtain surface features of the Earth. So when it comes to actual interpretation of remote sensing, we see this electromagnetic energy in terms of wavelength. Okay, that's why we are mentioning here everything in wavelength, lambda. Okay, now we will just see the principle of remote sensing. What is the principle of remote sensing? This part I already discussed with you in my previous slide, that remote sensing is something in which we will categorize the objects based on their reflectance, right? Based on their reflectance and different amount of energy, right? Because every material will not have same electromagnetic reflectance. The tree will have something different, road will have something different, building will have something different, lake will have something different, river may have something different, mountains may have something different, or suppose a agricultural field is there, that may have something different. So based on the differences only we will work. So this whole process will be dependent on 2 things, right? This property will depend on 2 things: the target material, which I have already listed out in various features, and the incident energy, like the angle of incidence, intensity, and wavelength. This we will see further. So the uniqueness of the reflected or emitted electromagnetic radiation is used to detect and discriminate the objects or surface features. Okay, I hope you are getting now. This is third time I'm repeating the same concept in a different term with more technicality. So everything is unique in its own aspect. I told you, lake is unique, tree is unique, road is unique, forest is unique, agricultural field is unique. So they will have unique reflectance, and that unique reflectance we will use to quantify and map that where is what and how much it is. Okay, where is what and how much it is. We will calculate areas also. So now we will just see a brief of sensors and platforms. So first we have to understand what is the difference between a sensor and platform. So sensor is what? It is a device used to detect the reflected or emitted electromagnetic radiation. The simple example of it will be cameras and scanners. Okay. And platform is what? A vehicle used to carry the sensor, like aircraft and satellite. So if I give you the nearest example, our cell phone is the nearest example of sensor and platform. So you can think of our mobile phone as a platform on which a certain megapixel camera is attached. So that becomes sensor. And this sensor is always attached to our mobile phone. And wherever we are carrying mobile phone, camera is also with it because it is attached to it. So that become platform, right? So it is sensor and platform. But when it comes to remote sensing, we will have very heavyweight satellites with various features. On that, very high resolution sensors will be mounted. Okay. Now, when you are working in remote sensing, there are certain stages which you need to see. Okay, so you can see here A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. These are the basic stages which are there when you work in remote sensing. So one by one, we'll just see. A is what? A is the emission of electromagnetic radiation from the sun. Okay, as we all know, sun is the most abundant and natural source of electromagnetic radiation on the earth. We cannot uh, generate or we cannot create such huge amounts of EMR by ourselves. We can generate, but it will be localized, like in hospitals or something when we go for X-ray and all. But the sun, what sun does, that we not at all even imagine about. By now, we don't have such instruments. So the sun or an EMR source located on the platform. Okay. So you can see I'm using sun also or an EMR source also. That I will tell you afterwards why we are using both. But always remember that sun is the main source of EMR. Then second one, there will be transmission of energy from the source to the object. So from A, it is going to C and following path of B. So here in between, there will be some absorption and scattering of the EMR while transmission. As you all know, we will have certain wavelength. We will have different kind of layers in our stratosphere, right? And then there will be some particulate matters, PM10, PM2.5. Then there will be some aerosols. Because of all this, there will be some absorption and scattering in the air itself. You must have aware when there is more fog or something, you are not able to see. So you are not able to see is also a kind of remote sensing only, because whenever I am seeing something, when you all are sitting at your place, you are seeing your screen. So you are not literally touching the screen with your eyes. Your eyes must be at a certain distance from the screen. So you are also basically doing remote sensing, but locally. Of course, in between, if some smoke is there, and if someone is burning something or some kind of fog is there, you will not be able to see the screen. So that is in between some absorption and scattering of the EMR while transmission. Then comes C. This is also a very important part. Here, the EMR will interact with the surface of the earth. Interaction of EMR with the object and subsequent reflection and emission. Okay, here some part will be absorbed and some part will be reflected back. Okay. Then D is what? Transmission of energy from the object to the sensor. Whatever is gone inside that is a different study area. That we will not go ahead in that today, but we will see the reflected part. So from D, there will be transmission of energy from the object to the sensor. E is the sensor. Now, whatever energies are there, that will be recorded at the sensor. Here, all energy, EMR energy will be recorded. Then whatever recorded energy is there, that we will transport or transfer at the ground station. Transmission of the recorded information to ground station. And then we will process the data. And finally, we will analyze the data and we will do the decision making out of it. So, in today's talk, I will be sharing with you some case studies, which I have done some R&D project for Department of Science and Technology and various clients. So we will see from all this. We will start from E point because A, B, C, D all are taken care by ISRO. We all know that National Remote Sensing Center is a part of ISRO. ISRO is our very renowned agency for space science. So up to capturing and collection, they will do. And afterward, the satellite image is free for us to work upon and get the desired task done. Now, I want you to also communicate two types of remote sensing system. There are two types. One is passive system, one is active system. Now, I told you in my previous slide that you keep in mind, sun is the natural source of EMR, but sometimes we may require some artificial also. So in passive remote sensing system, it is like similar to taking a picture with an ordinary camera. Okay, ordinary camera. And active remote sensing is what? It is analogous to taking a picture with camera having built-in flash. Means when the flash is off, we are using natural light while taking the photograph. But if it is a night time, we will use the built-in flash of the mobile phone to capture the image. It is similar to that. So in passive system, sun is the source of EMR and it is being recorded at the sensor. And in active system, the sensor is coupled with some kind of mechanism by which itself it will send the pulse to the earth and it will be returned to the sensor. Okay, so this is passive and active remote sensing. Now, there are some key points which we should see when we are dealing with passive and active remote sensing. So in passive remote sensing, the source of energy is that which is naturally available, like solar energy or energy emitted by the earth afterwards. It will retain the energy first, and the same energy will be emitted after some time. You also, I believe that most of you all from Madhya Pradesh, or of course some people are out of MP also. So you would have seen that जो गर्मी के बाद लगता है ना, जून जुलाई के बाद जब बारिश होने के ठीक पहले, so even in daytime there will be hot, too hot, and even in nighttime certain places will be there where the land will be emitting energy that we can see also from certain distance. There will be some blurring kind of image or impression will be there. That is emission. In daytime it has retained the energy and now it is emitting it. Okay, we cannot call it reflection because it was not reflected at the time itself. So it has stored the energy, then after some time it is emitting. That's why we are calling it emittance energy. Okay, so most of the remote sensing systems work in passive mode using solar energy. And solar energy reflected by the targeted specific bands are recorded using sensors. Now, when it comes to active remote sensing, I already told you, energy is generated and emitted from a sensing platform towards the target. We ourselves send some energy, and then energy reflected back by the targets are recorded. So in case of active remote sensing, longer wavelength bands are used, like our active microwave remote sensing. And you would have heard in the army, we use it most, radar and all those kinds of things. I believe when India did air strike on Pakistan, you would have come to know about this word, right? Now, I think passive and active remote sensing, this much only I would like to show. Now we will see the types of remote sensing as far as height is concerned. Okay, as far as height is concerned. So there are three types. First is ground level remote sensing. Second one is aerial remote sensing. And third one is space-borne remote sensing. So of course, ground level remote sensing is like similar to our handheld camera or mobile phone because we are standing on the ground. And usually we do this to calibrate sensors for different features on the Earth surface. So satellite image will be giving you something, but what we have to do is that we have to go and check on the surface also, some points, not all, 5 to 10% of the point. So we use ground level remote sensing. Okay, then comes aerial remote sensing, like low altitude aerial remote sensing and high altitude. In this balloon based remote sensing is there, in which camera will be mounted, helicopters will be there, then airplane on medium altitude will also there. Nowadays drones are also there. You know that drones are also we are using, and in lot of marriages and wedding we are using aerial remote sensing for even taking photographs also, right? So ultimately you are using remote sensing. Now, the final one, which is of utmost importance to R&D, is the space-borne remote sensing. And lot of research is going on that because it is a fascinating area. It is an exploratory kind of research. We does not have any hypothesis for that. We are not starting with any assumption. We are exploring, we are finding the problem, and then we are finding the solution, contrary to what we are seeing on the Earth surface. When we live on our surface, we know almost everything. We know what to take, what not to take. But in space, it is like a dark medium. So everything we only have to work out. So there we have space shuttle and polar orbiting satellites and geostationary satellites. Now, I told you that I will discuss this in my further part. So I would just like to give a technical brief of what happens when an EMR spectrum incidents on the surface of the Earth. Okay, so there will be three phenomena. Actually, there will be four. But broadly, there are three: reflection, absorption, and transmission. So this will be incident radiation. Some part of it will be reflected back. It will be called reflection. Some part will be absorbed then and there itself. It won't go anywhere. But after certain time, as I told you earlier, it will be emitted back. That is called emission. Okay. And some part will be transmitted further in the other geological strata of that particular region. There will be rocks. There may be some other geological strata, subsurface layers. There it will transmit and ultimately absorb. So reflection, absorption, and transmission, and whatever is absorbed, certain percentage of it will again emitted back. This emission only we many times use for microclimatic study. Now, one thing we need to see is that when I say that I will be using certain values or certain difference in EMR for characterizing the surface of the earth, I should have some value in my mind, right? So that value is called as albedo. You can see here that it is called as albedo. Now, what is albedo? Albedo represents the reflectance characteristic of the Earth's surface features. Okay, it is representing the reflectance characteristics of Earth's surface features. It is what? It is the ratio of the energy reflected by the surface to the energy incident on the surface. And we always find it in terms of wavelength. We always measure it as a function of wavelength. So you can see here that R lambda albedo is ER of lambda. R denotes reflectance. Divide by EI of lambda. I is incident energy. So energy of wavelength lambda reflected from the object and energy of wavelength lambda incident on the object into 100. And as you all know, 100% reflectance will not be there. So it will be always less than 1, or at the max in ideal cases, it will be 1. So various surface types like grass, concrete, water, fresh snow, forest, thick cloud, and dark soil are having certain values of albedo. Okay, over the time, last 10 to 20 years, lot of research work has been done on this area, and we have worked out the usual albedo ranges of this kind of entities. Okay. So if in between some 10 to 15-second pause is there, I want to inform you that I'm taking tea. So don't ask me whether everything is fine. Okay. So now up to this point, the
Yes, sir. Everything is okay.
Yeah. Up to this point, we have covered the technicalities of remote sensing, and now I want to just briefly give you some programs which are very useful when you are working in remote sensing and GIS. So first one is the Landsat program. It is the longest running program for acquiring satellite imageries of the Earth. It was launched in 1972 by National Aeronautical Space Agency NASA. And I will show you, we have taken one satellite image of 1972 also, and we could do the analysis. It was a joint effort by NASA and their Interior Department. Initially, it was called the Earth Resource Technology Satellite, ERTSS, and later on it was renamed as Landsat. Okay, total there are 8 satellites, and by now we have an archive of almost 1 million satellite images for this. Okay, so as you can see, year-wise, this I will not go in detail. From 72 started, and each year one or the other type of Landsat image, Landsat satellite they have launched. Okay, and of course, I just want to brief you that when remote sensing is progressing, what we are doing is that we are progressing in satellite sensor also. Like initially, it was return beam VDCOM, then multispectral scanner, then thematic, then enhanced thematic plus. It is just like car models now. Basic come, there will be basic, then there will be plus I10, I20, this that Activa, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. It is just like that. The sensor is same, but with the enhanced capacity. Okay. Now, second one is our own, our very own Indian remote sensing satellite system, and it is also one of the largest civilian remote sensing satellite constellation in the world used for Earth observation. Okay, by now we have 4 or 5 types of sensors: LIS1, LIS2, LIS3, WIFS, and AWIFS. Okay, so NRSC ISRO, which is situated in Hyderabad, is doing lot of work on this, and they are doing lot of application part on agriculture, hydrology, geology, drought and flood monitoring, marine studies, and land use analysis. Okay, and these are the details of various satellite which we have launched by now. So I will not go in the minute details of it. Okay, so with this, I have finished the technical part of remote sensing. And now we will see geographical information system. Okay, so if you see remote sensing and GIS, many times are used synonymously with each other. Okay, many times we will use this system synonymous, that remote sensing and GIS same. But with my experience, I can very well assure you that both are not same, but both work hand in hand. Okay, first see what GIS is. So as you can see here, GIS consists of three parts, three words: geographic, information, and system. So there will be a system, okay, which contains information of geography of the area. That is how you should perceive it. Okay, system having information of all the geography of the area. In that geography, every aspect will count, be it water, be it forest, be it land, anything. So GIS is what? A system for capturing, storing, checking, integrating, manipulating. Manipulation means not the human manipulation. It is a manipulation means by different visualization. Analyzing and displaying data which are especially reference to Earth. Okay, so we will capture the data, we will store the data, we will check its quality, whether the data is good or not. We will integrate, we can do different with and without scenario, that is being called as manipulating, and analyzing and displaying the data. Okay. Now, same thing I just shown here. As you can see, collection, store information, analyze, visualize, plan, and decision making. And finally, a map will be out that I'll be showing you. So what I want to show you is that what is the difference between remote sensing and science. So you always keep in mind that remote sensing is a science. Okay, it works on the fundamentals of physics. And geographical information system is a tool. We use this tool to perform remote sensing. But always you remember that GIS is a tool for cutting, clipping, area estimation and all. But the actual capture from the Earth's surface is using a science called remote sensing, in which mostly we use physics and atmospheric science. And we also use electronics and electrical engineering. Okay, that's how we use RS and GIS synonymously. But you should keep in mind that both are different. Now, having said that, what are the remote sensing and GIS applications in civil engineering? Because I am a civil engineer, and first I will show it in civil engineering, then we will come to micro environment. So we can use RS and GIS for infrastructure management, critical infrastructure protection, site analysis, town planning, urban development, water resource engineering, least cost highway alignment. When you are planning a highway between one city to other, you should have a least cost highway. Right. At the same time, you have to see that not lot of resettlement and rehabilitation of the people are required. Otherwise, heavy compensation will be paid. Okay. Then terrain mapping and analysis, data handling, land site prediction analysis, and regional planning. So as far as environmental engineering is concerned, it has lot of application, like starting from natural resource management, agricultural management, air quality monitoring, climate change study, which I am going to show you now, conservation of woodlands and wetland, forest assessment, forest carbon management, mining, ocean conservation, polar region studies, to up to global green initiative. So if you see, this is the reason I said that remote sensing is one of the game-changing technologies of the future. If you are able to create precise sensors in future, let's say near 3 or 5 years, and when we couple it with AI, as you can know nowadays, ChatGPT, people are using like anything. It is one of the LLM, large language model. So when we couple with this technologies, it may really be a boom for the humanity. Okay, and of course, it should not be used for doing plagiarism and cut off our work to AI, but it should only be used to enhance our creativity and make our work speedier instead of completely assigning the task to AI. So I hope this 10 applications in 10 or 11 applications in civil engineering and around 20 applications in environmental engineering is clear to you. Now, one by one, we will see 2 or 3 case studies, actual R&D project, which I did as senior scientist in CSIR. And that with that, you will be able to grasp how satellite images would have been taken, how the analysis would have been done, and how results were useful in making the policy of a certain area. Of course, in 1.5 hours, it may not be possible to give you all the minute detail, but my aim is to give you a direction. And through Devanshi madam, you can always approach me if you wish to work, and I will be happy to further guide you if you would. Some of you would like to take some projects along with your students. Now, the first one is the impact of urbanization on microclimate of Nagpur city, a remote sensing approach. So this work I did when I was in CSR Niri, Nagpur, and we have used remote sensing to find out the impact of urbanization on microclimate of Nagpur city. Okay, so one by one we'll see. First thing is that we all know that now the climate change and global warming are major environmental issues in present scenario. Okay, you would have heard that if you have some elders in your house who are above 60 or 70, they would have told you that in their time, they have never felt this much hot, what they felt now in summer season. At the same time, you would have heard with them that when they were 20 or 30-year old, all the seasons, be it winter, be it summer, or be it rainy season, all were on time and of actual 4 months each. There was no disparity. But nowadays, you will see that anytime it is raining, right? Anytime you will start feeling hot. Anytime you will start feeling cold, which is not the correct timing as per the convention. Now, what is that? Well, of course, at the same time, nowadays we are experiencing extreme weather events also. Extreme weather events like too much hot, too much rain, flooding and all, which we are experiencing very frequently nowadays. All these are result of climate change and global warming. Okay, you have to keep this in mind. All these are happening because there is a long-term climate change, and temperature is one of the factor which determines the timeliness of the season. So if you are disturbing the temperature, be ready for other kind of distortion in your season cycles, which I just mentioned in my which I just previously mentioned. So if you see, there is a continuous steady rise in worldwide temperature. And one of the factor, which is a more prominent factor in this kind of climate change, is the urbanization. Okay, urbanization and industrialization. So if you see, when an urban city develops, since you all are from Indore, I'm a 90s kid. Okay, so when I was up to 15 to 20-year old, between Indore and there was seriously of agricultural lands. But today, if you go between Indore and Devas, you will not at all feel like you are going from one city to other. All developments everywhere, both sides. Many of you would agree with me if I talk to you personally. So this development, what it is doing, that it is changing the element of the land to a element which has more power in retaining the temperature. That is the reason our temperature is increasing. Okay, so urbanization is one of the factor, and these changes in land use land cover analysis alters the surface temperature. Now, when I want to make a R&D, okay, I want to make a policy out of it. Okay, let's say I am in the central government and I want to make a policy. So without data, I cannot make a policy. Simply saying that, sir, climate change is happening, there are extreme weather events, we have to stop this, stop that. It cannot work like that. You should have some quantified values. Okay, for that we need monitoring. So if I go on land, if I monitor with conventional thermometers, you yourself can imagine that how much time it will consume. This temperature sensors and thermometer. It will be tedious, time consuming and expensive. So what we have come up in this study is that we have used remote sensing in this, at CT scale. We use the remote sensing and we try to find out whether remote sensing can give a reliable data on temperature to us. Okay. So we tried the same using remote sensing. Now, what basic principle we followed is that first on the left hand side, you can see there are certain bands from 0.4 micrometer to 0.7. It is visible range, 0.7 to 1.2 near infrared, 1.2 to 8 mid infrared, and 8 to 14 micrometer is thermal infrared. So we have used visible region. As I already told you, we'll be using visible region and thermal infrared region to carry out this research work. And we use all three. We use reflection also, emission also, and emission reflection also in this particular work. You can see the sun source, then satellite sensor, and then emissivity part. This we use. Now, what we have done is that you have to keep in mind. I know you all will be having a smart camera nowadays, a smartphone. Okay. So you would have heard about that my camera is this much pixel. Like for example, my mobile phone Realme has 64 megapixel AI camera. Okay, which presently I'm holding. So what does it mean 64 megapixel AI camera? It means when I'm taking an image and when I'm zooming in, up to this much pixels it can go. Okay, up to this much pixels it can go. Now what is a pixel? Pixel is the smallest unit of measurement on a particular sensor. It is in a rectangular form. That's why you'd have observed that if you zoom in, zoom in, a picture like anything, it will blur and there will be small rectangular blocks. Okay, if you are not done, you try to do it. If you zoom in very heavily, there will be some rectangular blocks at the end. That smallest unit is pixel. And if there are more pixel, if it is a more pixelated camera, then even if you zoom in more, your image will not get blurred. Okay, iPhone is the living example for that. And of course, then size will also increase. So in remote sensing, we denote a pixel using a digital number. As you can see here, it will be in rectangle. Each rectangle is denoting one pixel. Okay. And each pixel is having one digital number. So what we do is that first we convert this digital number into spectral radiance. So there is one calibration equation which we have formed using Stephen Boltzmann law. In 11th class physics, we used to read Stephen Boltzmann law. Okay. Using that, we converted to spectral radiance, and using same law, we have derived one equation for land surface temperature. Okay, using spectral radiance, we can convert it to a land surface temperature. Okay, so I hope the basic approach behind the research work is clear to you. Now, the study area we have taken is in Nagpur city. You can see the study area in Nagpur city. And first, we have started with the land use land cover analysis. So what you are seeing on the screen is the 2005 land use land cover analysis of the study area. Yellow color is denoting agriculture, brown is open land, green is vegetation plantation, blue is water body, and red is built up. This is 2005, and there are some animations, so I want you to pay attention cautiously. 2005, 2008, 2010, 2016. Now you see in 2016, yeah, it is 2016 because in 2000 up to 2016 only I was there. Later on I moved as a permanent employee. So now 8 years back, but the concept is same. So you can see here that from 2005 to 2016, yellow areas are vanished. Yellow means agriculture is vanished. You can see this vanished. This is also not there. And these green areas where greenery was more, that is also become less. See, it has converted to more red. Right? It is converted to more reddish color. Red color denotes the built-up activity, means people have constructed something. So what we have observed is that from 2005, the blue column to 2016, there was increase of built-up area from 55.41% to 69.84%. So around 14% built-up area is increased. Now you yourself think the city area is fixed. Okay, city area is fixed. If city area is 100 kilometers square, it will be 100 kilometers square only. So if something has increased, if some land use class is increased, other land use class would have been decreased. So agriculture is decreased. You can see in 2005 it was 8.77 percentage of the total area, and now only 2% of the city is agricultural. Okay. Same with vegetarian plantation. Of course, water bodies are more or less same because all the water bodies are protected. There are three good major lakes in Nagpur: Ambazari, Futala, and Shukrawari Talab. Those three lakes are as it is preserved. So that change in area is not there. Okay, and barren land and wasteland also initially it was more or less constant, and some decrease from 2010 to 16 was also there, because afterwards they would have started using barren land also for construction. So I hope up to this point it is clear to you. 2005 certain land use, 2008, 2010, and 2016. Okay, and this is the statistics of change. Now, I told you that temperature is completely dependent on the temperature retaining capacity of that particular piece of land. I also told you that tree will have different emissivity, water body will have different emissivity, road will have different emissivity, and forest will have different emissivity. But you have to keep in mind, the more built up is there, it will retain more temperature. I'll give you a simple example. If you are living in a township or something where greenery is not there, and you can take the example of IPS Academy itself, let's say, or wherever your college is. If you are moving on highway, ring road, or anywhere in a hot summer time, you will feel more hot. But if you are going in a campus where both side trees are there, right? Trees are there, or any such surface is there which does not retain the temperature, it emissivity more. There you will feel cool, right? Because it does not have temperature retaining capacity. So this is the emissivity map of 2005. The more black it is, the more temperature bearing capacity it has. So if I just want to communicate you emissivity is nothing but the ability to emit. Okay. Ability to emit means the more the emissivity, it has more ability to emit the temperature it has stored. Means you will feel cool, right? Ability to emit. So you can see here that what all built up was there. It is completely black, because on concrete road, on bitumen road, on your roof of your house, you will always feel hot. But wherever green were there, you can see here green and this lakes, it is white. Means it will not retain the temperature. That's why even in hot time we feel cool near a water body, near a river, or means relatively cool. It may not be that cool, but as compared to a built up area, you will feel cool. Okay, and barren and wasteland also in between emissivity is there. So this is emissivity for 2005, 2008, 2010, and 2016. So here you see, I want you to observe that it has converted to a more black color side. Okay, means the surface element of the Nagpur city is converted in such a way that now it can retain more temperature. More blackish means more temperature, right? Because we have changed the surface element of that in terms of built up road and other developmental activity. Now I'll show you the final map. Land use, land cover we have seen, emissivity we have seen, and now we will see the land surface temperature. So this is the land surface temperature of 2005. Here you can see wherever lake and other things were there, the temperature is between 24.7 to 27 degrees Celsius. And up to 33 to 36. 33 to 36 we have categorized in a normal range, but above 36 it is hot. So you can see here that maximum temperature is going up to 45 to 46.2. Okay. Then this is 2008. Now it has gone to 48.2. 2010. Now it is gone 50.6. And 2016. You can see it has converted to a more reddish and a maroon color side. More red means more temperature. The highest temperature recorded is 53.5, and this all images we have taken of May month. In Nagpur, those who know or those who have visited Nagpur, May is like, a larger replica of muffled furnace. You go out and you will feel that you are walking around in a furnace. Dry heat, total dry heat. So these are all images of May month land surface temperature. Now I want you to observe wherever lakes were there, Those are completely green. These are lake only. One is Ambazari, one is Futala, and one is Shukravari Lake. So all these are green only because water cannot hold temperature more. And whatever less reddish are there, these are green patches. You can see in the previous image. These are, of course, these are white. White means it will not retain temperature. And you can see these are all green patches. So when green patches are there, emissivity is high. It will not retain the temperature. It will emit and temperature will be low. Now, what is the beauty of remote sensing is that the beauty is, you see here, we could able to identify the hotspot. So on left side, what you are seeing is the areas where it is under control, not under control, but pleasing. So be it Shukravari Lake, I pardon for putting a wrong image. That is VNIT actually. we put different image. Shukravari Lake, Ambazari Lake, Futala Lake, VNIT Nagpur, Seminary Hills and CSR Niri, which is my workplace also. Their greenery is more, lot of tree plantation and all. So temperature is under control. But on the other hand, if you see airport, you see the airport, Kachimet, these are name of the area, Daba, Nara, and solid waste incineration site in Padi. You see here the temperature is very high. Okay, GHIK, you can see here this is J, this is K, and this is G. Now, if you see this long strip, what you are seeing here at G, this long strip is actually a runway of airport. And you know that runway is a bituminous blacktop surface. And you would have heard about the black body radiation. So you know that black color absorb the heat. That's why in Arab countries where only sand is there, no rivers and all, they used to prefer white clothes because it will not absorb heat like a black color cloth. Okay. So this is the beauty of remote sensing, that while sitting at my own place, which just using satellite image, I could able to work out this much detail. And I'll tell you one interesting thing also. Based on this thing also, now I have a running research project, which I am doing for Indore, Nagpur, and Kochi. So you see this point K. K is what? Solid waste incineration. Now you see highest temperature here is 53.5 in a solid waste incineration site. So it is not a piece of land, right? It is not a piece of land. We have taken solid waste from somewhere and we have put it somewhere on the land. But why it is showing high temperature? Because there will be microbial community in the solid waste, which will be doing exothermic reaction continuously. That's why near the dump sites and all, you will feel hot. And also there are various incidents in Gazipur, Delhi and Brahmapuram, Kochi, that by itself, it will pick up the fire and there will be very big fires in dump sites. Okay, you would have heard of it. Otherwise, you just search Brahmapuram fire incident or Gazipur fire incident. So you will come to know that when you put lot of solid waste, in which organic waste is also there, it will generate methane, and that methane is flammable gas, and ultimately it will pick up the fire. So see the beauty of remote sensing. The sensor was even able to capture the exothermic reaction also. So based on this, this again, I have submitted one proposal to CSR and I received the funding that I will show in my last case study. So this is the graph in which we have seen the land surface temperature from 2005 to 2016, and you can see that there is a continuous steady rise in mean land surface temperature. And within 15-year span, the mean temperature was increased by 4.6 degrees Celsius, which is an alarming rate. If you keep on cutting trees, if you keep on vanishing the area where mixed vegetation or grass is there, and you are keep on constructing building, we will suffer. We will suffer a lot. Okay. And then we have tried to find out that since I'm a researcher, and of course, we all should have a scientific temperament, we should not conclude or we should not assume anything unless it is statistically verified. So we have tried to put correlation studies with all classes. So first we have seen with agricultural land. So with increase in agricultural land, temperature was decreasing. You can see, means if I increase agriculture, that will be good for the microclimate. Okay. If open land also, if I increase, temperature will decrease. Okay. If vegetation also I'm increasing, temperature will be decreasing. But you see the build-up. It is the only class, if it is increased, temperature will also increase. means the culprit is our urbanization. So what we have to do is that we have to do urbanization and plantation hand in hand. Okay. One second. Yeah. We have to write hand in hand. So this is the example of how built up over the time can actually contribute in the microclimate. Okay. And once it is contributing in microclimate, it will of course go to the microclimate also of the overall city and countries. Because if small patches are there of high temperature, it will ultimately alter the temperature of the upper realms of the region. Okay. So then we have tried to see if we uh, replace the nearby open areas of ring road with vegetation, what changes it will make. So see the first case, it is a barren land. This is the road, ring road of Nagpur city, and there is no tree. So that time the average temperature in the road buffer system, not of the city, road and buffer alone, it is 44.7 degrees Celsius. But if I replace these trees with trees replace this open land with trees or vegetation, you see the average temperature is reduced to 35.4 degrees Celsius. You can see the importance of having tree in the city. So if I'm planting green belt, there will be reduction in average temperature. In road buffer system, it was reduced by 9.3 degrees Celsius. And if I'm talking about whole city, there also it has positive impact of 0.2 degrees Celsius. Whole city also it is decreased. So this was an answer to the people who used to say 10 or 15 years back that green belt is a waste of idea. And anyway, we have trees, lot of trees near outside of the city, so that will taken care. It is not like that. That is to prove them with the research that it cannot go like that. If you are constructing something, you make sure that you are planting nearby trees also. So if you give green infrastructure, it will have multiple benefits like access to green space. Then it will reduce the urban heat island effect. It will improve air quality, right? Our landscape connectivity also will be there, and also it will attenuate noise pollution also because the leaf of the tree absorbs the noise, and of course it will be using carbon sequestration. And if there are heavy flood, the roots and the girth of the tree and as well the branches of the tree all actually helps in managing the stormwater. This all helps in reducing the depth of the runoff. Okay, we used to read rainfall runoff curves. So it is proven that if vegetation is more, the runoff will be relatively less because of the girth of the tree and the root system. Okay, so concluding this particular case study, the advantage of remote sensing is that it can provide data for large areas. Okay, it can provide data of very remote and inaccessible areas where I can't go. And it is able to obtain imagery of any area over a continuous period of time. You yourself see, with remote sensing only I am able to go in past and do the analysis. You just think over it seriously. If today I say something to you that what was the value in 2015 or 2006 in your lab, you may not be able to answer. But if you have a satellite image of that time, you can go in past and get the analysis done. That is also one of the striking feature of remote sensing. And it is relatively inexpensive because whatever images I showed you, altogether it costed me from NRSC ISRO 12,000. 12,000 is a very major amount. Okay. And there is a easy and rapid collection of data and rapid production of map. All this study I could do in 2 months alone. In 2 months, we could analyze the data, we could do the ground truthing, and we have sent the paper for publication. Now, second case study is geospatial assessment of tourism impact on land environment. So now in micro environment, we have seen one temperature related. Now we will see land environment. And I will finish my talk with one of the recent interesting proposal for which I got the funding from ministry regarding the GHG emission of a municipal solid site. So in this case study, I will be showing you how the tourism of an area can also alter the land environment, and that altered land environment can ultimately impact the micro environment. Okay. Now, in this study, our objective was to assess the extent of urban sprawl over the course of time and to determine the land cover of the study area and perform change detection studies, what I have showed you in the case of Nagpur, and to assess the impacts of tourism on Dehradun in terms of infrastructure development on various slope configuration existing in the area. So our study area was Dehradun. As you all know, Uttarakhand is also known as Devbhumi, and this is the center point of Dehradun. From there, we have taken a buffer area of 2 kilometers, and we have tried to see how things have changed from 1972. Here comes the importance of remote sensing. I told you earlier that 1970, I can go up to 1972, 50, 60 years back, and I can do the analysis. So what we have done is that we have taken primary data, we have taken digital elevation model, we have taken satellite data from Landsat. From DEM, we have prepared the slope maps. You all know slope is like how much vertical drip after how much horizontal steps. We denote it in 1 in n. Like if मैं 3 मीटर चल के अगर 0.5 मीटर नीचे गया तो 3 डिवाइड बाई 0.5 जो एंगल आएगा वो मेरा स्लोप आ जाएगा. मैं उसको डिग्री में भी बोल सकता हूँ या इतना चल के इतना गया 1 in n टाइप में भी बोल सकता हूँ. उस afterwards with Landsat data we have created land use land cover and we have overlays all the satellite image, all the land use land cover analysis on that slope map to work out the change in land environment. Okay. Now, on left side, what you are seeing is the FCC Landsat image of 14 November 1972. This we have taken from Landsat. You can see here, this is a FCC image. FCC denotes false color composite. Okay, this is a technique. This we will not go today. So this is a Landsat image of 14 November 1972. Okay, and right side you are seeing the land use land cover analysis of 1972. Yellow color is agriculture, dark green is forest, light green is vegetation, then plantation built up, water body and scrub land. Scrub land means once upon a time there was some water, but now it is not there. It can be a river floodplain also. So this is the land use land cover of 1972. This is land use land cover of 2000. You can see here, this is 25th November 2000. Left side again the false color composite and right side the land use land cover. Classes are same. And this is the final NULC analysis of 2016. All these my studies are limited to 2016 because afterwards I moved from NIRI. So this is the left side you are seeing the false color composite image of Landsat ETM plus enhanced thematic mapper plus of 12 November 2016. And right side you are seeing the land use land cover analysis. Okay. Now first we will see how much things have changed. So if you see again in this case from 1972 to 2016, built up is increased. Right. Again agriculture is decreased. Forest also little bit decreased. Plantation little bit increased because of the government agencies. And vegetation also decreased and water body also decreased. Means you can imagine some people have constructed houses and water bodies also. And scrub forest is more or less same. So what I want to convey you is that you would have heard in 1 year back in Wayanad, there was one flooding incident in Kerala. Okay, and I hope you all would have heard name of Dr. Madhav Gadgil. Madhav Gadgil is a renowned name in environmental impact assessment studies, and he has clearly mentioned in his report when he was working on the Western Ghat that in this area of Wayanad, no development should happen because it is a vulnerable area. Okay, these are all once upon a time paths of the river. And when more water is there, the water, water is the inherent nature of finding his least slope path. It will find out, immediately it will find out. That's what happened in Uttarakhand also in 2013-14. उत्तराखंड की जो त्रासदी हुई थी उसमें भी ऐसे हुआ था कि जिन लोगों ने नदी के फ्लड प्लेन पे या इसी जगह पे घर बना लिए थे, जैसे ही बहुत ज्यादा बारिश आई सबसे पहले पानी ने उसी रास्ते को अपनाया, उनके घर बह गए. Similar thing happens in landslide also. When a slope is more, and if you are going and you are constructing houses on that, of course, when there is some extreme weather event, that slope class only will disturb first. Okay, so this is a matter of worry. Now, having said that built-up is increased, then we have tried that on what are the slope classes on which it is increased. So what we have done is that first we have created a slope map. On the left-hand side, what you are seeing is a digital elevation map of the study area. in which highest is 1756 meter and lowest is 510 meter. This is above MSL. Okay. This is RL above mean sea level, reduced level above mean sea levels. And on right hand side, what you are seeing is a slope map. So we have categorized it into 6 categories: gentle slope, strong slope, steep slope, moderate, extreme, and very steep. These are values like 0 to 15 degree gentle, then 15 to 21.5 is strong. I'm not able to recall values properly, that you can search my research paper on the internet. You just search Saurabh Sakhre geospatial assessment, then it will come. You can download. So there you can see the exact quantified values. Then we have created slope map. So you can see here it is very steep slope. This is dark maroon, dark yellow. These are all steep slopes because these are mountains. And center only there are some gentle, strong, and moderate slope. Then what we have done is that we have done some overlay. So what we have done is that on slope, on various slope classes, we have tried to superimpose our land use land cover analysis. So you can see these red patches are built up of 14 November 1972 on slope classes. This second map is of 25th November 2000 of all the slope classes. And this third map is built up map of 12th October 2016. And this is complete overlay. So you can see in 1972, only in central area you are able to see the built up. Okay, you see only central area and some patches where low slope is there. But when it comes to 2020 and when it comes to 2016, you can see very small developments on steep slope also. Now you yourself think they have constructed houses on steep slope. They have flattened the land. They have constructed one retaining wall, and on that flat bed they have constructed the house. But any calamity happen, the underlying geological strata on which even retaining wall itself is, transferring the load, it itself will fall. That's why in hilly areas landslide occurs more. Okay. So you can see the small patches on a built up is constructed. Then we tried to find out what is the numeric value. So we came to know that on gentle slope also built up is increased. On moderate slope also built up is increased from 3.26 to 6.43. And you can see on a strong slope also built up is increased. And on extreme slope and steep slope and very steep slope also a small color bar you are able to see. So some development is there. So all these people who are there from strong slope to very steep slope, they are always on the verge of landslide or a catastrophic situation, because any extreme rainfall, any geological change, any earthquake related thing, the people who are living on the strong slope and very steep slope will be the most vulnerable to that. Okay, this we have reported to Dehradun authorities for framing strict building bylaws. Okay, now as far as built up is concerned, we try to find out why the built up is increasing. Okay, so of course it is a Devbhoomi and people migrate to, commuters are more. So what people have done is that each house owner has constructed one hotel. Like if I have a single story house, I will construct 2 more stories, and the upper 2 stories I will give it as a motel or hotel. So of course population is also increased. But number of tourists are also increased, and there is a direct correlation between the year and built up percentage. So if you limit number of tourists, if you give an upper ceiling based on the carrying capacity of the area, it can be reduced. Also, before giving permission for constructing 1 more floor or 2 more floor, a proper scrutiny to be done. Then only you will be able to stop the destruction of land environment. Now the findings are like, as Dehradun is a well-renowned tourist spot, number of tourists are increasing at an exponential rate and expected to be double by 2025. Actually, already we are near 2025 because I did it in 16. So it will be an overburden, and built up is significantly increased during 1972 to 2016. So in this case, we have tried to find out the impact of tourists assessed by extracted and overlaid built up. And some part of the built up was also observed on strong, extreme, and extreme slope, as I said. So our final recommendation was that therefore it requires an immediate concern by regulatory authorities for forming strict bylaws for infrastructure development. And I'm happy to share that this study we did as a result of a high court case. One person was there. His name was Tara Singh, I guess. and he put a case against the Lake Development Authority in Uttarakhand, and they have given this work to NIRI. So our recommendation was that if the slope is more than 16.5 degrees Celsius, 16.5 degree, permission to construct any of the man-made structure should not be allowed. Like that, our recommendation was there. Of course, it could not come in policy by now, as far as my knowledge is concerned, but we should avoid constructing houses on a steep slope. Now, I have almost come to the end of my talk, and I will be showing the last case study. The title of this study is Development and Demonstration of a High Spatio Temporal Resolution UAV aided GAG monitoring system. UAV means unmanned aerial vehicle, that is drone. And we are trying to develop a greenhouse gas monitoring system in this using remote sensing, because you know that in India, municipal solid waste is also a big problem, right? Municipal solid waste is also a big problem. So we are trying to solve that. Now, when I done some study for Nagpur, I have observed that this exothermic reaction of microorganism is also being captured in the sensor I told you. Using that idea only, I have submitted my component in this, that we can work out the greenhouse gas emission in greenhouse gas emission using remote sensing also. So here we have taken two study area. You can see first we have taken one dump site in Bandewadi, Nagpur, because CSR NIRI is also our research partner in that, and there are two dump sites in Bandewadi. The total area is around 101 acre. And one we have taken in Brahmapuram dump yard, Kochi, the area of which is around 70 acres. So why we have done is that Nagpur is a dry area. Okay, you know Nagpur is dry area, moisture conditions will not prevail. That's why it feels like a muffled furnace. But Kerala being a coastal city, every time there will be some or the other form of relative humidity will be there in the air, some moisture content. So one we have chosen in Kerala itself. So we can also compare how remote sensing is working in a coastal area and a non-coastal area. So our methodology includes delineation of dump site boundary that you can see we have delineated. Then we will frame one sampling network on this. Okay, and based on the spectral radiance, LST, we will plot directional profiles. Now I hope you are aware what are spectral radius and what are LST. I have already shown you. And then we will see the prominent GHG gases like methane, carbon dioxide, and nitrous oxide from the dump site. And what we will do is that this all data we will feed into the UAV, that is the drone, in which we are developing a sensor. This is a NAL prototype. NAL is our one more sister CSIR lab, National Aeronautical Laboratory, which is situated in Bengaluru. So we will transfer the data to that sensor so that it can be validated. Okay, and this will form the critical foundation for assessing spatial variation. Now, using the same method, what I showed earlier, what we have done is that we have taken landsat images and we have tried to work out the land surface temperature of the area. So left side you are seeing the land use rainfall analysis of 2014 and corresponding land surface temperature. So here it was highest has gone 33.61, and in center the dump site is there. The dump site is in center. Then 2018, 2021 and 2024. So you see it was 33 average temperature. But because of this dumping of solid waste, it is now 37.04. So it is clearly reflecting in the remote sensing analysis also. This we will use to correlate with the greenhouse gas emission, and in future it may happen that without much experimentation, we will be able to quantify the greenhouse gas emission from solid waste dump sites using remote sensing alone. Okay, so with this, I finish my talk. I hope I have not let you get bored at any point of time. Even if you get bored, it is your problem. Anyway, I'll be very happy to answer a couple of questions. Over to you, Devanshu ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. Indeed, it was a wonderful and mesmerizing talk. It was seeming like a story to us, and we really hope to continue. We don't wish to leave you right now, but because of the constraint of time, we have to stop here. I would like to open the session for the participants. If you have any questions or if you would like to interact with sir, please unmute your mics.
Yeah, actually, I'll be happy if someone can ask some meaningful question related to their study area.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, the study which you did in Dehradun, actually, did you go to the site or you did it from somewhere else?
I could not get what study in Dehradun.
Uh, did you have to go to the site or
Yes,
did you do it from somewhere else?
No. We did land use and for analysis and remote sensing. We did in our lab for ground truth points of slope categories and other thing. We have gone to site to validate our result.
That's great, sir. In fact, all your work is really inspirational.
Thank you.
So, the participants, please unmute your mics. You have a good chance for interacting with sir. Indeed, he's very humble and always ready to help us out.
I think Rajshri Kamath is raised hand. Go ahead.
Ma'am, please, you can unmute.
Yes, sir. Saurabh, sir, your presentation was very down to earth, very simple and very easy to understand.
Thank you.
And I have this question. From where you could get the remote sensing satellite images that you have shown us?
Yeah. So there are three ways. Our first way
Yes.
is you can note it down, or maybe I can write here. 1 second. You can note down, or
Yes,
you can
if you-
take. Yeah, sure. There are three ways.
If you can just display here, yes.
Yeah, you can
USGS Earth.
USGS Earth Explorer. This is the first point. You can make your credentials. It's very simple to make. Then you can go on the Bhuvan. It is created by
Yeah.
our own Indian Remote Sensing
ISRO.
Satellite. And
Yes.
third, you can go on the NRSC ISRO commercial side. There also you will get it in very cheaper rate. Okay, and how to download the satellite image, how to choose a satellite image, all our tutorials are there on their site itself. So just a 20-minute tutorials are there. You will be able to know like how you can download the satellite image for, let's say, Indore, or let's say Nagpur, or anywhere. It's very simple. Remote sensing part
And
is
we can-
here, but just now I've typed.
we can have the DEM and all generated out of these images, right?
Yes. USGS Earth Explorer is the site of Landsat. Here you will get Landsat data. On Bhuvan and NRSC, so you will get IRS data. In DEM also you will get on USGS Earth Explorer. You just go and type Amsterdam. As you can see here, I am typing ASTERDEM, Amsterdam, and you will get the DEM data.
And I wanted to ask which softwares you have used to do all analysis?
Yeah, sure. So we have used three softwares. So first one is ELDAS imaging. Okay, as I told you earlier, remote sensing is a science, but GIS is a tool. So to do remote sensing, we use ADAS imaging, and for GIS, we use ArcGIS, and for
ArcGIS, yes.
minor computation and all, we use QGIS, Quantum GIS. Okay, so the last one, QGIS, is an open source software. It is free for all, and Devanshi madam may help you in some links. Recently, only we conducted one short-term course on which recordings are already uploaded on my YouTube channel. So madam can help you on with that links. You can go and watch that, and I'll be happy if you can, using that video, if you can carry out some meaningful work for you. All full procedure is there. Me and my colleague only have taken those lectures.
Yes, I have already worked on ELDAS Imagine in my institute for World Bank projects, and ArcGIS and QGIS we like our students had been using. But now the challenge for us professors is to keep us ourselves updated with all the new things, So thank you so much. Thank you very much for this.
Welcome.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. So, any of the participants, if you would like to interact, you can unmute or also type in the chat box. Participants, please switch on your cameras if possible for the attendance. And I would like to thank Saurabh sir personally for being such a wonderful person, always reaching out to us whenever we ask him for help, and supportive for all the events that we have done. I'm really thankful to you, sir, for all the support that you've provided us till now.
It's an honor for me.
Thank you so much, sir. And we'll definitely have a chance, hoping to have a chance to interact in person somewhere in the future. We'll be calling you to
Sure.
have a great training session.
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of the Civil Engineering Department over here at IPS Academy, I'm really indebted by your presence.
Thank you, madam. So, if no further question, with your permission, shall I just leave?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, madam, and thank you all the participants for patient listening.
Thank you so
Welcome.
Thank you.